Hello, everybody. This is a very important question. Does absolute truth exist? Now, some like to pretend to have false humility by answering or thinking that they are thereby humble when they actually have a false humility by answering with a straight out no, absolute truth doesn't exist. Now, obviously, what they don't realize is when they make that claim, I'm going to ask them, is that absolutely true? Because when they say no, they are again making it as if that is an absolute claim. So saying that absolute truth does not exist is self-contradictory, meaning you're in essence saying that it is absolutely true that absolute truth doesn't exist. So that won't work. Some may pretend to be an agnostic and say, I don't know if absolute truth exists. But then again, I'm going to ask them, is it absolutely true that you don't know that absolute truth exists? And we have the same problem again. So the only option really is to admit that absolute truth does exist. Now, before I go on, I want to screen share some comments, and later on, I'm going to go into the debate that was held between my brother Saiten Bruggencate and Matt Dillahunty. Many atheists think arrogantly that actually Matt Dillahunty has won. I don't know what world they're living in. I mean, they've got to be totally delusional. But let me just screen share that. Oh, wait a second. I have somebody over here. Dex. Let me just. I'm gonna show you in the broadcast. Let me do that here. Hey Dex, can you hear me?
Hi, John. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Oh, not bad, not bad. Just hope you don't mind a little bit of the noise there. Hope it doesn't interrupt. I'm sitting by in a cafe right now.
Oh, oh, yeah, I hear that. But I think yeah, it should be fine, I guess. So
I'm just interested in the topic for sure. So looking
okay,
looking forward to hear what you have to say.
yeah, I wanted to later on, comment on the various statements that Matt Dillahunty made. I'm going to play play that clip where he responded to Saita Broomgate because I
Mm-hmm.
had some additional comments to make. You see, but before I go there, I just wanted to point out that what was that again? Let me check here. I wanted to screen share some comments, but let me see. Mm, oh, yeah, some people maintain that they absolutely know that they exist. For example, there's this famous statement, "I think, therefore I am." But of course, there's also problems with that, okay, because the premise already has the conclusion in it. I. It's already assumed that I think. Meaning I already exist. It's already being assumed. You have to be like thinkings going on somewhere, or thinking going on in ether, and from therefore you somehow have to explain how you exist out of that. Doesn't make any sense. But even that, but mostly for sake of argument, I grant that. So even if I grant people that they absolutely know that they exist and that they are limited, in other words, that they are not God, fine. But how do you know anything else after that? Even that I even grant you that much. And that creates a real problem epistemologically. Hey, admin, how you doing, bro? Good to see you.
I'm not doing too bad. I just got done watching that Exodus movie last night. Holy
Oh,
cow, that thing was farther off from the truth than thinking the original. I'd
so
rather refer to the original than the new one.
yeah, I think the Exodus, even Noah, I think these modern movies about the Bible are being made by atheists or agnostics or lukewarm Christians. Either of the three, I would suppose.
But you gotta think that when he crossed the Red Sea, he crossed the Red Sea. I don't know. Have you ever seen that, Johnny?
The new Exodus movie, I didn't see that, no.
Okay, basically Noah's crossing. I mean, Moses is crossing the Red Sea
Mm-hmm.
up to his waist in water. By the time he gets out farther in the ocean, there is no water, as in like it's big puddles of water, like after it rains on a lot, like where there's little dips in the ground. It's really stupid because he walks out and he throws his sword out that he got from his dad, and then it's very stupid, to be honest. The plagues weren't even in order or anything, I swear.
Out of order from what the Bible states. That's what you mean?
Say what?
Completely out of the order that the Bible, in which the Bible mentions them.
Yes. It was basically the biggest waste of my life, to be honest. I would recommend the original one with Charles Heston before I would recommend this new one.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Now, this movie is not made by Christians who take the Bible seriously. I can rest
Of course
assure you.
not.
And that is why I urge all Christians who are serious about the scriptures to just, discard these movies. As soon as they see that this is not in accordance with the scriptures, they should just discard them. They should mock them. They should symbolically spit on them. And they should make it known that they despise such movies, and that such persons, they should actually draw them on a piece of paper, and they should symbolically mock those producers even, and tell everybody to never engage with them, to chasten them morally, to socially shun them until they come to their senses and they
I'm
apologize.
curious, John. Who is this Dex?
Who?
Who is Dex?
Oh, Dex is actually somebody who I think he's an agnostic, or I don't know exactly. Dex, do you mind?
Dex, if I can ask, what do you believe, as in the regards of a God factor, or what do you believe?
Regarding God and religion, I'm an atheist.
Huh, atheist.
Sure.
Johnny.
Yeah.
He's right. He's right up your alley, Johnny.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
we
had a
me and Johnny-
discussion in the comment section a bit, and today he came into my hangouts, so we may have a
I've,
discussion to touch on later on.
Okay, let me ask Dex a question here.
Okay, go ahead.
Dex, let me ask you this:
Sure.
How do you morally justify if a guard is killing somebody, like in Egypt, and he's paid to do it by the government, and it's his job? He likes doing what he's doing, and it's your job to morally convince him, without using God, that it's morally wrong to kill somebody without using God. You can't use your conscience because God gave it to you. So go ahead.
Well, I think conscience is something that we all have. And I mean, it comes from several factors here. First, there's empathy, right? Second, we all have needs and desires to live in a certain world. And I mean, because we're all human, we all share pretty much the same needs and desires, pretty much the same ideal world that we all want to live in. So it's not that difficult to come up to anybody and kind of get the same baseline regarding the kind of world that we want to live in. And let's face it, nobody wants to get killed. Nobody wants to get killed unfairly, that's for sure. So regarding the guard, it would just be a matter of convincing him that, well, let's say that I do think that he killed somebody unfairly or could have been avoided, right? It's just a matter of convincing him that that can be the case. That's it.
Hey Dex, let me ask you this question: Where did empathy come from?
Well, I guess you're not surprised that I'm also a naturalist. So empathy is, I guess, the natural quality of human beings, and I would say a lot of other animals. Like most of the higher life forms, most of the mammals, let's say that, have it to a certain degree.
Okay, so let me ask you this question: Where did the animals come from?
Evolved.
Where did they evolve from?
Lower life forms.
And how did the other life forms get created?
They didn't get created. They just came into existence because
That's impossible.
way.
Because even Benjamin Franklin, even what's his name, Even Bill Nye the Science Guy said that matter, not Bill Nye the Science Guy, I can't remember the guy's name, but he said matter cannot be created nor destroyed. So if that's true, then that blows your whole entire thing out of proportion. So now, once again, I'm going to ask you.
Hang on. Let me answer the question because I didn't finish. Because I understand what you're talking about.
Dix, I'm trying to clarify this for you. How did they come to existence if matter cannot be created nor destroyed?
Hey, Brother
And you
Russ.
said they were just there. How are they created? They can't be just there. They have to be created.
Sorry, your name is Admin, is that correct?
That would be correct. You're actually the first one that's ever been able to pronounce my name correctly.
Cool. Okay, there we go. Admin, yeah. So, I used the wrong word there. Created would not, or come into existence would not be the correct word. So, basically, this universe has certain laws, certain rules following it, right? And amino acids, DNA, is the natural product of all those laws. So obviously, we don't know right now how life came to be. That's still
Well, I won't give you that because
right?
I actually know.
Well, you don't because you can tell me God did it, but you don't know how God did it.
Well, see, that's
right?
the thing. You can't even prove. You can't even disprove that part. It's not my job to prove that. Hold on, Dick.
Can you tell me how specifically God did it? Like, for example, if somebody makes a car, you could say Johnny here made a car, and I go, okay, cool. But I guess in order to really, in order for me to believe that as anything other than an anecdote, I actually have to understand that, okay, Johnny's a mechanic. I may have to see him actually put something together, even something basic.
Words, Dex, what you're saying, in other words, is, have you ever built something in your life?
Of course.
Okay, and have you ever has somebody ever told you that they built something in their life?
Of course.
Okay, now, so in other words, you can tell somebody, I built something, or should I say, you can have a friend say that you built something, and unless their friend sees it firsthand or has evident proof to say that you built it, that's calling you a liar, that you never built it, even though you know you built it.
Of course not. Not all claims require the same amount of...
That's what you just said.
I didn't. Not all claims require the same amount of investigation. If my friend tells me, hey, so-and-so built this shelf, I go, cool. And I don't, because really, I have no investment in it. I don't care if they're wrong. Now, if I actually want this person to also build me a shelf, then I will want some more evidence that he is capable of doing it. Now, and on top of that, I don't have any reason to doubt my friend that, he's lying, right? I mean, he's not a random stranger. He's not. So, yeah, I would say that if you're going to tell me that a being that exists somewhere out there created life, I'd like to know how that process actually happened. Just simply saying that it did it, okay, that's cool, but let's actually investigate how it was done. Let's actually investigate how the pieces were put together, which is, and it's one of the reasons where I kind of get confused about religious people being, like, for example, anti-evolution. Because why couldn't God do that? Why couldn't God use a natural process to get things started?
I can just tell you right now.
That one.
He could, but he didn't. He said how he did it, and if you want, like you gave the analogy of Johnny building the car, allow me to say, there's also a thing called an owner's manual, okay? And what that does, they're also known as an instruction manual, okay? Now, what that also is that something how to build it. Now, with that being said, God gave us his instruction manual called the Bible, and he tells us how he did it. So that means we have how he did it. Whether or not we believe whether or not it's true or not.
You've read it, right? I mean,
I've read it more than 50 times, I can tell you that.
Are you sure? Because to me, reading Genesis is it's like reading Dr. Seuss trying to explain how the world was created. It's very
Well,
basic. It's very, it's, you know,
well, to me, reading
it's,
evolution and atheistic material is kind of like reading Dr. Seuss, but I don't chew you out for that. I mean, I'm
so,
not
so,
blaming you as a general
so,
atheist.
Hey,
I'm
Jimmy.
just saying atheist in general.
and I'm not blaming you either. So, if that's how you feel about it, so now we know how each other, we feel.
Yeah,
That's how
but
it
that,
is.
but that still doesn't solve the problem of coming to a mutual ground to where we both know that there is a creator, and if there was not a creator, then how in the world did the world come to existence when you cannot make matter and you cannot destroy matter? How did
Well,
the
I think you just answered that,
did
didn't you?
the hierarchies come to existence?
You just said you can't make matter, you can't destroy matter. So why do you need a creator?
The creator can create matter because he is the
You,
creator. That's why it's called a creator.
you said you can't make matter.
The creator can make matter because the creator
But
is.
so so you can make matter and you can destroy matter.
The creator can, not me.
Okay.
Don't get me confused. I'm not the creator.
I never said you could, but so matter can be destroyed and created.
By the creator.
Cool.
So in other words, I'm trying to make sure you understand that civilized common ground, there is a creator, because if there's not a creator, then you wouldn't
Right.
be in existence today, because matter cannot be created nor destroyed other than by the
Wait,
creator.
no, matter can be. Okay, other than by the creator. Okay. So, question. How do you know that matter can be created and destroyed?
Because the creator did it.
No, but you need a creator if that's the case.
If you're
But
not trying to
how do you know that
then
this
you
is the
disprove
case?
your own existence.
How do you know that this is the case?
How do I know it's the case, and how do we know we're talking right now? Because obviously the creator created matter, and that's why you're sitting where you're sitting.
Right, but if matter never needed to be created in order this, we wouldn't need one, would we?
Well, first off, I need you to re-clarify that because I had a little bit of your road noise in the background, or someone's road noise.
That's mine. I apologize for that. So, once again, if nothing needs to be created, then there is no need for a creator, correct?
If nothing was created, there would be no need for a creator. Is that what your question?
That's right.
Okay.
Just,
Well, first off, you're completely and utterly just shot over the target. You obviously did get created, so therefore, matter did
How
get
do you
made.
know?
So therefore, your whole entire
How do you know?
argument is failing from the beginning.
How do you know that I was created? How do you
Because
know that
you're
matter was
sitting
created?
there.
I get that, but why does the matter that I'm made of, why did it need to get created? Why couldn't it just exist?
Because there's a reason why God created man. Or should I say the
No.
creator?
We're not talking about the creator. We're talking about matter right now. So why did the matter?
The God created the matter, which is called man, and called the moon,
Why-
the stars, etc.
Why couldn't it just exist? Why can't it just be a
Because,
continuous
like I said,
existent
without
state
a
of the universe?
creator, nothing can be created nor destroyed. We already agreed to
But
that.
if nothing needs to be created, then there is no need for a creator.
But there is stuff created. That's what you're missing.
I don't prove that to me.
You're a living being, aren't you?
Yes, but I'm made of things that already existed.
Yeah. Already existed from what? Something else that already
Existed.
existed, which something else that already existed, and keeps going down the line. Sooner or
Correct.
later, you have to find something that started it.
No.
Because you can't just say,
How so?
you can't just say something just happened to appear out of thin air
Right.
without an explanation.
No appearance, and no thin air. Just existed for
Wait.
eternity.
Can I interject here real quick?
Yes.
I
Help
think,
yourself.
okay, I think that there's
Yeah.
a distinction between to be made. I would not posit that God is some kind of prime mover or first mover, after which you have all the events that are happening in a sequence.
Right.
Because I would say the problem with that is that that assumes things can happen or exist on the kind of level that we're talking about, like me and you, matter,
Mhm.
things like that. It would assume that they can
Right.
exist without God's directly, quote unquote, making them exist as they are in
Mhm.
that very moment. And so my
Right.
question would be, doesn't doesn't the question, why do these things need a creator, assume that they can exist without God?
Exactly.
Okay, can you restate that question again,
Okay,
Jimmy?
Yeah.
the question
That's
is,
true. It does assume that.
yeah. So Dex Prime is admitting that when we ask the question, why do these things like matter, me, so on and so forth? Why do these things need a creator? We're assuming that they can exist without reference to one. And so my follow-up question would be, how do you establish that?
How do I establish the part that there's a reason behind why they're created?
No.
Is that
No,
your
no, no, no,
question?
no, 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 no. My
The
I'm trying to
question
make
was
sure I
to
get
me,
your
right?
question clear before I answer your question.
no. Administrator, I'm not asking you a question. I'm asking a question to Dex Prime, and the question is, how do you establish in the first place that things can exist
Mhm.
without God, such that you can ask the
Well,
question?
so the basic thing is the baseline, okay, is that things do exist, correct? So we can just assume that presupposition.
No,
Things
I
exist.
actually I disagree with that.
Things don't exist.
I would say
I mean,
I would say that what I presuppose baseline is that um, uh,
existence
the
exists, right? I mean, it's a tautology, but it's one that's necessary.
well, I agree, but when I say existence, I have a particular um, metaphysic or system of existence in mind when I say that. I'm not agreeing to the idea that there's such an abstract as existence which doesn't need to involve particular metaphysics or um, categories involved.
Well, let's just simply let's not talk about like we can even just say that something exists, right? But right now, right here, we exist, correct? I mean, we can establish that we exist. We can start with that. Me and
But
you, we exist. Yes.
I agree. But when I make that statement,
Okay.
what is
Okay.
what is
Okay.
what is specifically
Okay.
meant by
So,
that? Well, I think we mean two
um,
different things when we say that, Dex.
okay. So I guess let me try to clarify that. Give me a second. Okay. So, existence required for experience. Um, so how do we actually talk about this? I'm not really sure how to talk about it without it being just a necessary tautology. I mean, it's not something that hmm, I don't even know how to go about describing it metaphysically.
Well,
So I'm,
I
I'm
would.
not really sure what you're getting at.
Well, my point is to say that I agree that we exist, and I think that it's
Cool.
sort of indispensable to this conversation. But when
Of
I
course.
say existence, I think that
Hmm.
there's a particular metaphysical baggage that's coming to that. Specifically, when I say you exist, that means
Hmm.
specifically you exist as a creature of God. And I don't think that there's a way, even if I don't say that specifically, I don't think that there's a way to avoid that reference.
So, okay, so I guess that's my question to you. So I don't feel that baggage is necessary. So how do we come to that conclusion that that baggage is necessary?
I don't
How do
think you
you?
come to it as a conclusion. I think it's an indispensable axiom
But
of even talking about.
how? I is there some literature maybe that you can point me to that's kind of shows that it is a necessary presupposition that we exist and that we are also that our existence is contingent upon a God existing?
I could, and I'd be happy to give you some links.
Yeah. Okay.
What I would say, though,
I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
Hey, does anybody know Adam Pugh?
Yeah, I know
oh
him.
yeah, Adam's a nice guy.
Okay, let
Yeah, I
me
know Adam.
broadcast him as well. Adam, what's your belief?
On the topic being discussed, you mean?
No. What's your belief system? What do you believe in?
I'm a Christian. I believe in the saving power of Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior.
Oh, you're a brother in Christ? Okay.
Yes, I'm also an empiricist.
Okay, well, what exactly do you mean by that in this context?
So empiricism is the idea that knowledge should primarily be gained through knowledge should be formed and beliefs held through the basis of observation and experience. Observation and experience are properly basic, and beliefs are structured and held based on that. That's the idea.
Yeah, but do you? The problem is, of course, do you not believe that God can reveal to you things in such a way that you can know them without using any material causes?
I do not.
Okay, that's I see that as a problem, but that's okay. We can discuss that another time.
So, Dex,
Like,
Un café, por favor, y más agua.
We don't have water.
No.
Yeah, we have only sparkling water.
Yeah. Can you do coffee?
Yeah, we have the coffee.
Okay, good. Con leche, por favor. Leche frío.
Stand
So-
by, Jimmy.
So as a follow-up, Dex. So my question, again, or rather, I'd be happy to provide links, but I think again, when you ask the question, how do we establish that this is necessary? Again, that question relies on the assumption that it's not already self-evident. So
Yeah, to me it's not. I guess that that's where we're gonna part ways. That to me, I start from the present moment, right? That there is this necessary tautology, this necessary presupposition that I exist, and then I try to make sense of that. Now, I just find that the God presupposition to be unnecessary. I find it to be unnecessary baggage for existence.
okay, and I think that a fair way that we
Find it to be necessary, and I think I've explained that in many of my hangouts why we deem it necessary. So that's
I think Dex is due to your hangout.
I'll have to go back and watch some of those videos.
okay.
Hey, Johnny, you mind
Yeah.
putting your Skype name in the side chat where I can actually try to add you? Because every single time I say for you to add me, and you never do.
Yeah, let me type that in, man. Yeah.
Because I'm going to go do it right now, actually, while I'm thinking about it.
Okay, here.
Yeah, I agree with Dex. I don't think that God is a reasonable presupposition. I believe God is a reasonable conclusion from the available evidence. And I also believe that's the way the Bible presents God.
what is evidence?
Yeah, but the Bible also says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, so we have to start with God. Evidence presupposes God already.
No,
I would
it
like-
does
I would
not.
like-
What do you mean by that?
Not everybody can speak at once,
How do you-
okay?
how do you start with
Not
God?
everybody can speak at once.
Yeah, the
Sorry
problem
about that.
the problem here is that you have to first of all know that your senses are reliable, and that for that God has to do something external without using any material cause. He has to do it intrinsically.
Here's something for you, Adam. The Bible says, "Lean not on your own understanding." Where do you come to the understanding on your own of that God does that it's not necessary for there to be a God factor?
I would like to know more simply, what does evidence mean? Like, what does that word even refer to on
Evidence?
something other than the epistemology that me, Johnny, and I think Administrator are putting forth?
I'm right there with Johnny. Johnny knows what I'm saying.
Okay,
Can you repeat that question? Because I was too busy adding Johnny on Skype.
hey, I'm gonna ask you guys. Can you take care of the hangout, brother? Brother Adam? Because somebody wants to
Yeah,
talk
if
to
I had
you.
the control panel, I would.
What do you say?
If I had the control panel, I would.
Yeah, I'll give you the control. I'll also give Brother Russ the control. Hey, Russ, bro, are you there?
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm just
bro.
working on something at the same time I'm listening.
Okay, bro, I'm gonna give you the Hangout controls.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna have a three-way conversation with somebody on Skype, and I'm gonna be back. Then later, I'm gonna play that clip with Matthew
Johnny,
Potential.
to have a request on Skype here in a couple seconds.
Okay, I'll leave it at
Gracias.
Russ. And where's this guy? Oh, yeah. Please, I mean,
Thank you so much.
don't boot any agnostic atheists. It doesn't matter if they get too insulting or something like that. At best, unbroadcast them, give them a 3-minute timeout, and then broadcast them back again.
Yeah, so in other words, I'm not even going to say that. Don't even worry about it. I know what I was about to say. Johnny knows what I was about to say, but I'm not going to go there.
Are there any agnostic atheists in the discussion right now?
Not now, probably. It seems as though there's only a atheist and you, Adam.
Okay.
But anyway, go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah. A conversation, like an apologetic conversation, a conversation that would be fruitful concerning the argument of whether or not God is axiomatically foundational to conversing about these topics, conversing about these concepts, is whether or not believing or addressing these things is consistent with what we believe as axiomatically necessary for the things we're talking about. So for someone, for example, when you say that you start from the current state of affairs of your existence, or I think that's what you were saying, I could be wrong here, but when you say that, if it's consistent then to believe this or that which you do, that's the subject of the conversation, then I would say you've kind of demonstrated your point of view. However, if on the other hand you cannot consistently believe the things you do within the subject of the conversation, given the presuppositions that you've offered, then I would say that would be my argument against your position.
And what's your basis for evaluating consistency?
I would say the logical law of non-contradiction in this case.
Okay.
So if a proposition is if you have a positive doxastic attitude towards two propositions which are excluding each other, then I would consider that an inconsistency.
Fair
And
enough.
that's what I mean.
That's reasonable.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I definitely think that's reasonable. I will point out though, it's a relatively weak set of criteria, which is that it's quite possible that many worldviews that are very much inconsistent with each other, and would have various other things not to make them very good or likely worldviews, might all nonetheless all be consistent, right? I mean, the worldview of where we're living in the world of Harry Potter, and the worldview of we're living in the world of the Matrix, and the worldview of we're living in the world of C.S. Lewis's Narnia, those may all end up being consistent.
I disagree.
But none of them may be very likely to be true.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Okay, explain.
Since
What's your disagreement? Is that you think there's some You think there's something that's going to fall out obviously that makes those things inconsistent?
I would have two problems with that concept. That there's possibly an internally consistent system, which is also not true. That is, it's not. It doesn't have any reference to the way reality actually is. My first problem with that is that it's part of a system's very purpose to be trustworthy with statements that it makes about reality, and so it would be inconsistent from the very get-go to say that it's quote-unquote consistent while it doesn't relay what reality actually is. And then more fundamentally, I would say consistency is a concept that is by itself grounded in God, and when applied to creation, grounded in His divine plan that makes every event in creation or every fact about creation consistent. And so there is no such thing as a totally consistent system without its referencing the consistent plan of God.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty steep claim, but you can feel free to move in the direction of justifying it.
Well, I just did.
No, you did not. You just made a pretty expansive claim. You did not provide a justification for it.
Oh, I thought you're referring to my claim that a fully consistent position that is not, I keep looking for a certain word, but I can't find it, but that is not true with respect to the statements that it makes about reality. Or are you talking about the claims that I make to explain that claim?
Well, specifically the claim that you make that consistency necessarily requires God's plan. We already agreed on what consistency was. Consistency means no contradictory statements, no requirement that statements are held that are contradictory to each other. That there are trivially consistent worldviews that require essentially no real premises at all. And the idea that we need to underlie them with this much more specific and elaborate framework, I think, is some, well, if it's something you can justify, it certainly isn't something you've justified yet.
I actually did, but
No, I don't believe you did.
well, I don't really. That doesn't bother me. You're free to believe what you wish.
Okay, and you're free to believe that your claims are proof, but that doesn't make it so.
Okay, can you restate what you said, Jimmy, so I can make sure I can try to clarify this for Adam?
Sure. I said that given the fact that creation, any fact about it, is only consistent, or that is self-consistent with respect to the divine plan of God, that is, since God's brought about every fact in creation by His divine plan, and it's only consistent with itself in light of God's all-cohesive plan, it is impossible to have a consistent view of reality without referencing God's all-consistent plan, because it is only consistent in light of that.
Okay, now where's the problem with that, Adam?
The problem is that it's a claim; it's not proof. Okay.
Well, it's actually a
very ambitious claim.
Hold on, guys. You are aware, me and Russ both have moderator powers. I'm just saying that. That means if you get too far out of hand, I do not really like using them, but I only use them on a rare occasions.
Why are you even bringing this up? We're nowhere near out of line at this point. We're just talking.
I'm trying to say because every single time I went to address something that you said, it seems as though you were trying to interject something. Now, basically, what I think Jimmy is trying to say to you is he's trying to say the reality that you see around you is the proof of what is God's divine plan. Is that not right, Jimmy?
Well, not exactly. I guess I was explaining I was explaining the Christian position. So, I mean, if we're calling that into doubt, then we're not calling... The fact that it was a claim seems to be unjustified in that sense. When you say you're a Christian, I'm just explaining what Christianity involves. So I think, for example, if somebody says they believe in ice cream, and I reference the definition of ice cream, and then they say, well, that's unjustified, that doesn't really make any sense to me. I mean, I'd be glad to argue for Christianity, but in light of the fact that I'm just explaining that worldview.
So I'm just curious, Jimmy, do you agree with what I said, though?
It wasn't what I was communicating, but I do agree with what you said. Yes.
Okay, well, maybe you should probably clarify it a little bit more so that way Adam can understand what you're saying, and then maybe you can come to a conclusion of how to stand on your own basis. Because I'm trying to make sure I am to understand you. Because I may have been just walking in on the last bit of the conversation. That's why I had you re-say it.
My point is that and again, it's fine if we're questioning Christianity, but I didn't know that's what or rather, we're questioning a biblical view of creation. But the biblical view of creation is that things are what they are in virtue of the fact that God has made them that way. Unless we're, of course, obviously, unless we're talking about God himself. But if we're talking about creation, the reason that everything is consistent within creation, it's because it only obtains in reality because of God's self-consistent plan. So it's impossible to have a consistency without its being grounded or justified or somehow referencing or relying on God's consistent plan, because it is only in light of that plan that there's any consistency at all. In fact, it's only in light of that plan that the very concept of consistency within human frameworks exists.
Any argument there, or any refutal? Do you disagree or agree, Adam?
I disagree. First of all, we remember that what we were talking about was we were talking about evaluating worldviews not necessarily for full correctness, but only for consistency. In other words, that we were gonna starting from basic lit. I mean, I'm not even sure what we were wanting to start from. I think the idea was to start from nothing or as little as possible, evaluate worldviews to see whether those worldviews meet the criterion of consistency, that they don't hold multiple contradictory premises as true. That was, and from that I brought up, just sort of offhand, some examples of worldviews that might actually be all consistent. Each of the worldviews may be self-consistent, but would obviously be contradictory with each other. And from there, Jimmy said, well, no, that none of those worldviews are going to end up being consistent, and is now bringing up this idea that evaluating a worldview as consistent requires that the worldview take into account God's plan. I think it's a pretty hard claim to prove that it is impossible to have a consistent worldview that doesn't take into account the plan of God. I certainly don't think that at this point Jimmy has proven that. I don't really even think he was trying to make an argument that supports or proves it. I think he was really just describing his position. But I mean, I would, Jimmy, if you really think there is there's a good solid argument as to why it is impossible to even have a consistent worldview. And remember, we just mean a consistent worldview. A worldview defined as consistently meaning not having two or more contradictory premises. That necessarily requires these very specific premises. That really seems like a difficult statement to prove. I would very much expect that, in fact, many false worldviews, many worldviews that in fact are not true, will nonetheless meet the very weak criterion of consistency. So the idea that that's not the case, I would be interested in it to see how you get there.
Go ahead, Jimmy. That's all yours. You were the one talking to him.
Okay. With respect, Adam, it actually begs the question to remind me that we're just seeking consistency, not a trustworthy relay of the facts. Again, I keep looking for that term, but I can't find it, because the very question is total consistency factuality? And I hold that it is. I hold that to be completely consistent is to be, or rather is an indicator of one's being true about his, or rather that his beliefs are reliably accurate. So, and my argument for that was, on the first hand of things, it is a matter of consistency itself to talk about some worldview or some system or some ideologies being inconsistent, being reliable with the state of true affairs, because it is the very purpose of such ideologies to be reliable. So if an ideology were said to be consistent but not reliable, that itself is an inconsistency, because it's the very purpose of the worldview to be reliable, and therefore it's not even consistent with itself in terms of its intentions. Secondly, I was merely describing my position, so that is true. However, that was assuming that we held to the same view of creation, which perhaps we don't. But if you hold to the view of creation that I hold to, then it pretty clearly follows that it's not possible to have a consistent view of things without referencing the consistency that's found in God's plan for all creation. Now that is an argument as to why consistency is not possible, and I believe that it is proof. But if you don't accept the enthymeme here, if you don't accept the idea that things are what they are and they are consistent with each other only in light of the fact that God has made them that way according to His all-cohesive and self-consistent plan, then I guess, yeah, it's not an acceptable argument. And on a side note, if you are defining proof in some empiricist terms, then I don't think the conversation has gotten off the ground yet, because I don't accept the empiricist concept of proof as even meaningful. I would take a non-cognitivist approach to that position.
Yeah, we should probably go through that, but just to try to ground this discussion a little more, let's take a specific example. Let's take the example of hard solipsism, with me as a hard solipsist. Okay, what is your how do you claim that hard solipsism is an inconsistent position? What's your argument?
Well, I would say that there's various inconsistencies with it, but I think that the most obvious inconsistency is its treatment of universals. In this case, that solipsism is solipsism and that it isn't not solipsism.
Okay, and?
What's the difference between solipsism and not solipsism, given solipsism?
Given solipsism, the difference between the two is that I understand solipsism to mean one thing and non-solipsism to mean the opposite.
Okay, but
so what's the inconsistency?
The inconsistency there is that is mere proclamation.
Yeah, it is. So since the whole universe is my creation anyway, mere proclamation has force of law. What's the inconsistency with that?
So then appealing to a distinction between non-solipsism and solipsism that is universal is not the case. A universal is something. No, a universal would be something which is not validated by one's opinion.
No, in this case, actually, a universal would be something that is validated by one opinion. Namely mine, because mine is the only opinion.
But again, a universal by definition is something that's not validated by opinion.
No, the definition of universal is something that is validated generally, and in the case of a hard solipsistic universe, a universe in which one mind is all that exists, then universal it does in fact mean I believe it. That is exactly what that means. Those things are rendered the same by the worldview. And my point, I only bring this up just to say hard solipsism is I really believe a fully consistent view. It is a view that there's nothing inconsistent about it, nothing that escapes that or causes any sort of a logical contradiction, which is why pretty much every philosopher will agree that hard solipsism is just simply a case out there that's not really easily solvable. But hard solipsism is also not true. Just because it's not true doesn't mean it's inconsistent. Consistency is a much weaker criterion than truth. That's my point.
I'm curious. Can I ask a question real quick? So what makes hard solipsism not true?
What makes it not true is that it is not true. To put it another way, it is in fact the way I put it is this: I as an individual am the only one that can evaluate hard solipsism for me, by definition, by nature. And when I evaluate it, I come to the conclusion that the consistent nature of my experiences are such that an external reality approaches a certainty. In other words, while my experiences are consistent with hard solipsism, any experiences are consistent with hard solipsism. Only a much narrower class of experiences are consistent with an external universe, and to the extent that my experiences match that, that intrinsically more delicate state of affairs, the likelihood of that being correct increases. And again, that does not defeat the possibility of hard solipsism. It simply means that that's not that as the universe is experienced, the notion that it's all in my head just doesn't seem to fit the facts. Does that make sense? Could still be. Everything could still be my imagination. That's the problem. Is philosophically speaking, you can't defeat hard solipsism. There isn't anything that does. But what I can say is I don't believe it. That's not what I believe is most consistent with reality. So I reject hard solipsism despite recognizing that it's in fact an entirely consistent worldview.
Right.
I reject it anyway.
Right.
Just like I reject atheism, despite the fact that I'm usually come to the conclusion that atheism is probably a consistent worldview. It's just not a true one.
Right.
So, that's what the being willing to entertain worldviews and recognize, whether they have internal consistency, is different from accepting their truth value. You know what I mean?
I would definitely agree that atheism in and of itself is consistent, but atheists are not consistent within its atheism. That's what I would say.
Right, because atheists are confronted with a world that has God in it, and that, you and I are in agreement on that. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy,
By the way, go ahead. You go
Sound
ahead.
like Jimmy. Sound like Jimmy was gonna say something.
Well, I don't want to waste either of your time. I would, I have my own opinions, but it sounds like the conversation has kind of taken its course, so I won't repeat anything.
Okay. Well, I find the conversation to be interesting, so I appreciate it. Yeah, on the issue of creation, I'm a theistic evolutionist, but I do accept the theory of evolution. I know that that neither Admin nor Veckel does. I assume Jimmy probably doesn't either. So that's a difference in perspective. But you know, Jimmy, you made an earlier point about the nature of creation, and I do want to say that that even though I don't accept the same special and literal creation event that you're talking about, nonetheless the conclusions you made do still apply to my way of thinking, which is that God is responsible for the creation of the universe and the world and us, and it is the case that all things have His purpose. So I do in fact agree with that. I'm happy. I like the idea of evaluating things teleologically, because I think understanding why God made the world the way He did is important, and that doesn't rely on me accepting a recent literal special creation event. I don't have to accept that to understand the idea that God is the originator and sustainer of all things. Those two things are different.
Right. I guess when I was talking about creation, let me preface this with this. I actually am not that interested in evolution. I'm open to the possibility that it's the case, at least theistic evolution. But I don't really think that that's as to whether or not that's the case. I don't think it's communicated in Scripture, so I tend not to agree with that. Yeah. What I meant by creation, though, was something much more particular. I would take a Hebraic view of creation, where I think that when God creates the universe, He doesn't merely just create the first moment of time, and then the universe is its own merry-go-round that happily goes around by itself. I would say that that's deism wearing the hat of theism. I would say that the Israelite view, the original view of creation, is that there's not a single moment of time, there's not a single fact about creation that isn't created in the one event of God speaking it into existence. And so that's how I was relating consistency to things, because the only reason that something is what it is because God makes it the case that it is what it is. And the only reason that the way things are is a consistent system is because it is analogous to the consistent plan, which determines that things are the way they are.
Yeah, I mean that's very interesting. Yeah, the first thing that you were saying about God doesn't just set things in motion; He continues to enact every moment. I accept that because it's my belief that God is the sustainer of all things. So I agree with you. It's not just something He did and then backed up and let it happen. God's sustaining of the universe means it's an active process. He's still here. He's still underlying the world and the laws He created. So I think we're in agreement on that. And you're right. It is a much more active role for Yahweh than the idea of just a clockmaker that winds everything up.
Yeah, I think so. I think we might be the only two ones here. Adam, do you happen to have the link to the broadcast? There's a buddy of mine that would like to watch.
Thank you very much, Jimmy.
Oh, you're back. Adam, or I mean, administrator, do you happen to have the link to the broadcast?
What do you mean by the link to the broadcast?
Like, do
I
you
have-
have?
Here it is. I got it on the side chat here. You want to watch the watch link, right? So you can watch it.
Oh, hey, by the way,
Thanks.
I forgot. The bomb has entered the room.
Oh! Got it.
I got you.
I'm gonna get you next time.
I take it this is a game that y'all play.
Yeah, every time either myself or Jimmy is in Hangout, if one of us enters the Hangout, we try to beat each other to the punch by saying, "Hey, the bomb has entered the Hangout, the room." Yeah, so.
That's good. Just if either of you are ever broadcasting from Wi-Fi in an airport, don't say
Yeah. I know, right?
No. Then
It's kind of bad for my dad because his name is Jack. So every time he gets on a plane, we have to watch out how we say his name.
Oh, really? Oh, hi, Jack. Oh, yeah.
Beckle, you
Are
know
you
my
getting on
dad.
this plane, Jack?
I said, well, somebody
Beckle,
said,
you know my dad's name.
yeah.
His name's Jack. So yeah,
You can't say
whenever
hi.
whenever a friend sees him, like, "Hi, Jack." Tackle him.
Hello, Jack, or greetings, Jack. Yeah.
Especially whenever they're like pulling their hand up, like, "Hi, Jack." They're like, "Oh no, take that guy out."
Yeah. Get a little bit of a scuffle on the plane.
I should
Johnny
name
still
my
here?
son. I should name my son No Fly Terrorist. And he'll never be able to get on a flight ever.
Is Johnny still here?
No, he's not. He's talking on Skype phone.
It looks like Dex may be back though.
Who's Dex? Dex Prime. Sounds like a transformer.
Well, Dex would be a transformer. Dex Prime would be that same transformer with the Matrix of Leadership. So Dex, why do you hate God?
No, jeez, that's a good question. All the things he hasn't done for me, I guess that's why. Yeah, hi guys. Sorry about that. I didn't plan on doing this. Saw the invitation last minute and kind of have.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's actually quite nice. Hopefully, I can do this again. Well, like I was saying, it's all those things he hasn't done for me.
Well, could I ask, what about all the things he has done
Just,
for you?
You know, keep.
Well, there might be some lag in the chat. I hope not. Hey, Adam, are you still there? Because you're
I'm here.
okay. Your mute symbol came off, and I couldn't hear it. And I was like, oh no.
No, I'm a little sporadic about mute and not mute. Sorry. Can't use that as an indication I'm actually talking.
So, Dex, could I ask you, what about all the things God has done for you?
I guess I'm just not wise enough to notice them. Maybe that's it. No. Or attribute them to this deity, you know.
Oh yeah, that would be a killer problem.
Yeah,
exactly.
you know,
The problem is I keep thinking that things just happen by themselves.
yeah. Well-
that is definitely an issue.
You know, I would say I would say try to look at it from that other perspective, right? Try, take the next time you're kind of just thinking through the events, say to yourself, if there were somebody looking out for me, what could I look at and say, you know what, that it really, that happening by chance doesn't really fit so much as that happening for my benefit, and see if you come up with anything.
I'm sure it will, but wouldn't that make it incredibly biased?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
every time. So what happens when something bad happens to me? I mean, how do you handle those kind of situations?
Exactly the same thing. You should definitely ask the same thing. This bad thing happened to me. What is it possible that there could be a reason behind that? Let me look for that and see what I come up with. Because Christians don't just believe that God is in charge of the good stuff. We believe that God is in charge of all the stuff.
Right.
So to be honest, I could take a look back in my own life, right? And I could see the things that have helped me to be what I judge right now to be a decent person, sometimes at least. And I could ask what formative events led to that, and I could list them off. And a lot of them will actually be bad events. And if I really wanted to be the person that I am today, a person today that I feel I can respect.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if I had to go back and cross events out of my life, I'd have to cross the good ones out, because the bad ones are the ones that really made me who I am.
Exactly. It's what helps us grow, right?
Right. So again, so it's not just the good things you should look to when somebody says, try to figure out what God might be doing for you. Also look for the bad ones, the ones that maybe don't make sense at the time, the ones that seem like just way too much way too much bad luck for one person to have, or way too much of a coincidence that it happened just that way. And then ask yourself, what might someone who's looking out for me to be a better person be meaning by these events?
Well, I mean, the whole thing with, let's say, like you said, it couldn't just be a coincidence. But the problem is I'm ignorant. So how do I know that it's not just a coincidence?
That's a good point.
Right?
You don't.
Could just be a coincidence. So
right.
Either way, it could go either way. So why do one way or another?
But Dex, I would say that. I would question the idea. I know I'm a heretic in modern first world society for doing this, but I would question the idea of what it means for something to be merely coincidence. Like what specifically?
What's a coincidence to you?
A coincidence.
What's a coincidence to you?
What, sorry, what was the question?
Okay. Well, let me say first. A coincidence to me is basically when I think something is unlikely to happen, but it doesn't. Just as I was maybe thinking about it. It is just an unlikely event, right? And the unlikeliness of an event is just based the chance of something happening. That valuation is made because of possibilities. That's it. I mean, that's all a coincidence is. So it's nothing special in a sense. You can be happy about rolling the dice and winning dollars. Just as you need $1 million, that's amazing, but all it was what you desired and you got it, or what you didn't desire and you got that. And obviously, a different person in the same shoes is not going to look at that as a coincidence. So I don't know. Coincidences, you could say I don't really believe in them because they're just subjective valuations.
Yeah. I would actually totally agree with that. I think that if you, especially if you define coincidence as this sort of value judgment on how amazing something is, or how out of the ordinary something is, that to me would be extremely subjective. But
Yeah.
I wondered, uh, Dex. Oh, I wish Adam hadn't left. He's enjoying his conversation. Um, I wonder how we could make value judgments like how amazing something is to yourself,
Hmm.
um, on a view where anything could happen. Because isn't
Well, I
that
don't think anything can happen.
okay? Okay.
I mean, the world functions according to certain rules, right? So I mean, I don't think there's an infinite amount of possibilities. Clearly, everything follows a certain pattern. Everything follows laws. So and I think that's how we come to the probability, right, of a coincidence. Is we think a probability is low. Now we get that probability because we know things follow certain rules. So, but sorry, I
Uh,
interrupted you.
no. I appreciate the interruption. What would you say these rules are? And I don't just mean like identify
Mhm.
them. I mean, what is the metaphysical referent of
Mm.
these rules? When you talk about these rules?
Right. It's a good question. I'm not really sure if I'm equipped to answer it. I would say that we do know that the world follows certain patterns. I mean, the laws that we have for this world are descriptions of how the world works. So it seems like there is a pattern. There seems like there is causality, for example. Um, their basis, I don't really know, and I don't know if we can ever come to that to to know what the basis of these. Well, okay, actually, there is one, and that is basically that if you're going to have structure of any kind, I mean, if you're not going to have chaos, you have to have some sort of laws, some sort of structure to things, because without it, we're gonna end up in either with nothing or with complete chaos, if such a thing even exists, if either things exist. So it seems like this. I don't know if I could actually come up with a justification for why laws exist, but we certainly have to accept that they do, because without it, we can't have even the basic, uh, foundations of epistemology, like, for example, the presupposition that we can know truths.
Yeah,
Hope
yeah.
that.
I would go ahead.
Oh, that's it.
Okay. I apologize because there's a bit of lag here. Yeah, I would agree with you, Dex, that some sort of normality or normalcy is indispensable to our appeals to experience. Or actually, I think you're actually correct. I would say any kind of epistemology whatsoever, it's indispensable to that, because, I mean, how do you even have an epistemology that isn't in some way related to your experience? But well, I think the problem there is that I don't see how given, and I have a very limited peek into your position. We've actually had lots of conversations before. I don't know if you remember, but from what I remember, I don't
Did
see.
you make me? Oh, damn it. Yeah, I think I remember. That was a year ago, longer.
Yeah, it's been ages, man.
Good to meet again. Small world.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I said in the chat, long time no see, and it's always nice to meet someone who speaks, politely, whether you're a Christian or not. Nobody likes the impolite Christians, and nobody likes the belligerent non-Christians, or any of you for that matter.
Sure. I owe you a video reply. I remember. Yes, you made me an excellent reply, and I actually lost your contact information in that video, and I've been thinking about it ever since. Just no time, and then your contact info was lost, and that was that. So maybe there's a video coming.
Hey, that would be cool. I would definitely appreciate that. Yeah. So.
But
Kind of jumping.
So
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering. I guess how do you when it comes to these laws, right? And I think we actually discussed this earlier. But how do you fit? How does deity solve this problem of there being rules in the universe? Because in a sense, the deity can't be chaos. The deity can't be nothing. So the deity has to be a certain way. So in other words, it can't create itself in a sense. It has to, once again, be a certain way, right? So these universal laws, right? It just seems like they're the basis. They're the foundation of everything. Including, it seems like they need to be the foundation of the deity as well. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point or question to make. How can one posit a God to explain these things without that God also relying on them for some kind of external explanatory power, or something of that nature?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's not an explanation, maybe it's some kind of transcendental counter or whatever it is, and that would still be problematic, because then really what you have is almost reality like an eggshell, and then inside on the first level is God, but he's still subject to the outer eggshell. He's still subject to existence by itself, or whatever the laws are, or whatever you're positing there. I would agree that that's problematic. What I would say as my response is that I believe that existence, even as a concept, primarily exists in God, if that makes any sense. So when we reference existence, the very idea of existence first obtains in God. There is no such thing as existing except in reference to God.
Yeah.
So the only categories you can talk about when you're talking about existence are God, and which is himself self-existent, and then what God has created, which is existent by virtue of the fact that he's created it. So as long as oh, go ahead.
It could cause an effect, right? So God is the cause, everything else is effect.
Sure, yeah, you can put it that way.
Okay. I see that and I understand that, right? I guess the question is that the issue is that it doesn't really solve this problem. It doesn't neatly tie the problem off, because once again, when you have cause, you have effect, but what's the reason for cutting off the chain, at the deity? It's not really an answer, because I just feel like you just stop asking that next obvious question of, well, what made the deity do what it does? Because once again, it can't act chaotically, and it can't act out of nothing without reason. So it's kind of fine, but it's not the big answer that I guess we're all looking for.
Yeah, I would say whatever the answer is, and I'm not sure I could give you a more specific answer than, say, the end of Ephesians 1. But whatever the answer is, it has to be God Himself, right? Like God cannot, if God is existence itself, there is no, at least by itself. That is, when you talk about existence, you have to be talking about the category of God or the category of what He creates. If that's the case, then when God goes to create something and you ask the question, why does He do so? The answer has to be found in Himself. There's nowhere else for God to grab from for a reason.
Right, and so basically what is being said here, I mean, from my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that essentially a thing exists in this world that has inherent values, laws, qualities, and this thing is the cause of other things. But to me, that makes the deity a little bit of a middleman, because if you just remove that and put the universe in there, so the universe exists, it has inherent values and laws, and it functions according to those laws.
Hey,
So
I got a
why
question
do
real
we
quick.
need to
I got a question real
put the
quick. Though.
deity in?
Right, I think we're asking the same question in reverse. Wouldn't we be, Jimmy, like, for example, why do we stop with matter? Like, why is it necessary to stop at matter? I think the same thing is going on within
Right.
what you're saying, Dex, and what we're saying. But
Yeah.
it
I
seems
agree.
like in a lot of cases what we do is we say it's irrelevant to know how, so long as we know what, right?
So I guess for me, once again, like I describe the idea of a deity as kind of like a middleman, and for me, it's in order to I guess in order to consider it, there has to be a necessity for it, right? So if we already established that things can exist, if we can already establish that these things can possess laws, if we can already establish that this thing can cause sort of begin causality, or let's not talk about beginning causality because that gets confusing. But in essentially, yeah. So we have existence and we have laws inherently already. So I don't really see the necessity to have something make it again. I
guess maybe I would ask the question in reverse and say it seems at least coming, because I'm sort of on the same page with Jimmy as far as where I come from as far as my Christian views and my philosophy. I guess I would ask the question in reverse, doesn't a law require a lawmaker? Something that I find interesting, for example, that's different about all the Greek gods, for example, having a pantheon and things like this, that they're apathetic. They're defined as something that's it's indifferent. It's not personal, and I think maybe that's the difference with a law. I might ask if there's how would you define, I don't know, that relationship between those laws and how you get those strictures from nature. Does that make sense?
I would add to that too that I think there's something to be said about. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Dude, Neo's freaking me out over there. Come on, man.
We don't need dead air time, guys. We can easily keep it going. I know we can.
Look at those glasses, man. It's like mesmerizing.
I know, right? I mean, I feel like I'm part of the world.
Oh, I think Dex lost the connection. This happened earlier.
Yeah, this happened earlier.
Oh no, there. Looks like he's back. Hold on.
Nope,
Ju-
he's not back.
I know Jimmy and I were discussing this probably 2 years ago, weren't we? And I said, couldn't we ground the primacy of existence within the Trinity? You know, that would be one way to and it would also account for, I hate to use these big words, but the equivocal nature of the word itself exists, right? Aren't there different kinds of existence?
Right. Yeah, and that's what I was going to bring up. Nightmare is the whole problem of univocism, the whole univocality issue, because when Christian philosophers talk about existence, at least Christian philosophers who are being consistent with the biblical view, we are talking about. Yeah, I think he's back.
Sorry, guys.
He had to go get a hot dog.
Sorry, I had to find a. Yeah. Power source for my computer. It's a little hard to find in the jungle. I'm chatting from Costa Rica here.
Ah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, just
it like
don't
over
sit
there?
near the beach. Computer
What's
makes
it
it
like
man.
over there?
Very hot right now. So I'm drinking 2 of these a day. So.
That's cool, though.
So it's good to escape the cold. I'm from Canada actually, and it's yeah, this is much better. Yeah. Sorry,
I'm in
I got just
Arizona. I'm in Arizona in the desert, so I might want to go to Canada, so I'd have the reverse problem as you.
For a couple of weeks is great. You go skiing, you go snowboarding, have a couple of snowball fights, but that's it. 2 weeks is max.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get off track. That's cool that you're in the jungle. It's awesome.
And apologies, I actually forgot the question that was being discussed.
Don't worry, I forgot it altogether, but Russell will remind you.
There'll be plenty more.
No, yeah, there will be plenty more.
I guess I think I haven't studied this, but I know that this primacy of existence comes from objectivist philosophy, right? I haven't read too much on it.
I think so. Well, I mean,
I still have to read more on it.
I think whether you're subjective or objective, you kind of have to accept that something exists. I mean, it really comes down to the levels of objectivity and subjectivity, because basically you have to accept that you exist. There is no other way out of this. The next step is, how much of reality do you accept? It's like that whole, brain in a vat scenario where, but the point is, even if you're a brain in a vat, you're still experiencing something. It doesn't matter. You could be completely, wrong about where you are, but you're still experiencing something. You're experiencing the brain in a vat. If you're in the Matrix, you're experiencing the Matrix. And when
That's
you come out of the Matrix,
I'm in the Matrix.
Well, I think we all agree that that's very, very weird. But you just come at a solution about this a different way. I think that's what Dex is explaining.
Yeah, I'm saying I can definitely tell the difference between the Matrix and the non-Matrix. I mean, when I put on these glasses, I can tell. When I take them off, I can tell this is not.
You keep putting them on, just checking.
Yeah,
just keep checking.
because I keep seeing you, and I have to keep changing.
There you go. Dex, keep putting them on. Keep putting them on.
Damn. Oh dear.
You're gonna be worried by the time about 10 minutes from now.
Dang it, you existent people are still here when I put the glasses on.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. I don't know. They must be not in the Matrix and connected to the Matrix.
It's all confusing.
Anyway, go ahead, Dex. Enough fooling around about the Matrix.
I don't remember the question. I apologize.
No worries. I was asking.
Don't worry. Plenty more to come.
I guess the question that I would be asking is, one of my problems with this tautology, if you will, or this axiom, is that there seem to be different kinds of existence, right? So when we say existence exists, are we using that word as if it only has one meaning throughout this? You know, I mean, that seems to me that it would be problematic for the axiom.
I think as a baseline, no. I think okay. Well, let's do an example, right? Let's say this was all a matrix. So the matrix exists, right? So what's happening is our worldview expands. It's not as if the matrix suddenly becomes false.
Okay.
It's
Right, I
more
think
like our worldview expands rather than a part of it is completely deleted. And I don't really see any way how to kind of have any way to falsify everything. Hola. You know, I don't really see any way how to detract from existence, because every fact, even if it's a false fact, is going to get categorized into something. You know, okay, so these facts are false. That's fine, but that's still a category of something that we have. That's a category of something that we've experienced.
Would you say, like, if God exists, it'd be the same for him, that it would be categorized in God's mind as well? Would that make sense to say?
Sorry, I don't really understand that.
But would you say that, like, I agree that it would have to be categorized, right, in order to be made sense of?
Yeah.
But would you say, like, if God exists, this seems to follow that he would have to have those same categories?
So let's. I don't really know what to. Okay, so let's say the deity exists, and he created the rest of reality, excluding himself, right?
Right.
So that would be the only level of, I guess, reality that's possible in its mind, right? I mean,
seems so.
But
yeah.
But at the same time, I don't really see how this God can know that it is not a matrix. I don't.
I think I get you. Yeah.
Because
I guess that's why I was asking the question if he would have the same categories. Like for us, creation means, or it has some sort of a connotation, and I would wonder if God has the same connotation when he thinks of creation. You know.
What do you mean by creation?
Can I interject real quick?
Sure.
For sure.
Because I think because creation is a really sophisticated concept, depending on how many questions you're going to ask. But really, just super quickly, I think, just to simplify what Russ is saying, because I completely agree with it. When you say existence exists, and we agree, because I think everyone in the room agrees with that, I think the question then becomes, in terms of theism versus non-theism, or at least Christian theism, the question is, when you say God exists, does that mean exactly the same thing as when you say any other thing exists? Because the Christian theist will say no. There's a
How so?
Because for the Christian theist, when you say God exists, he exists in such a way that the word itself, existence, when applied to him, depends on no other thing for it to be true, for it to have a meaning, so on and so forth. But when you say that, for example, Dex, Russ, and Jimmy exist, that only has meaning and is only accurate insofar as it relates to God's will making it the case, and insofar as it depends on God's opinion.
Contingent upon. So, yeah, I would say that would be a different level for sure, because we're contingent upon something, whereas I suppose the deity is not. At the same time, though, I think this contingency is just an extra description. I mean, we still exist. Just because we're contingent upon it doesn't mean that we. I think at the heart of it, it's the same thing. I think we're describing the same thing. That something actually is real, you know, because existence as a word, it's just a tautology, right? I mean, the only way we can talk about it is to say existence exists. It's right.
If I could just interject real quick, I think what I'm trying to say is, you know, are we using that term equivocally? Are we changing the definition when it applies and when it doesn't, or when it's necessary when it doesn't? So would you
Right.
say then that within this tautology we'd have to have the first existence, right? Existence.
Mhm.
The other mention of existence would have to be are necessarily equivocal words then.
I just think it means one thing. That is something actually. It's something that actually is.
So I
And
guess
I don't know how else to sum it up.
okay. This is all I'm saying. It
Yeah.
seems to me that axiom commits a
Mhm.
fallacy of equivocation. That's I guess the best way I can put it.
Equivocation to what?
Well, it's saying that the one meaning is identical to the other meaning, but that's not the
Yeah,
case.
well, to me, it kind of is. I mean, I don't. Once again, I don't really see that. It's a little bit like. So if we have that meaning, then essentially, me saying that your parents exist and me saying that you exist actually have different meanings because you're contingent upon your parents existing. So, but
Well,
it's
I
the
would use a
same
different
thing.
word. Right. No, I understand what you're saying. In that case, it would be. But what about something like the number one versus a
Mhm.
rock? You know, do they have the
Well,
same kind of existence?
um, number one in a rock. So the number one is, I suppose, is a descriptive term, right? Whereas a rock is an actual thing. The number
Right.
one does exist in the brain. I mean, it does
Right.
exist as
Right. One would be
as a thought.
conceptual. One would be conceptual, and the other one would be concrete. But it doesn't seem that they exist the same way. I guess that's what I'm asking about.
I understand what you mean. I just still think that we can both say that they exist. Yes, they exist in different ways, sure. One exists in just subjectively in a brain. The other one exists in the real world. Both are real in their own sense. You know, the number one is real as long as there are brains to think of number one. So once again, and that's actually a great analogy because you could say that we are like a number to the deity, right? Without the deity, there's no us, and without us, there's no number. So it's a great analogy. But I think at the baseline, all of them exist equally in a sense. But of course, we can separate them in terms of contingency.
Right. You mean in that narrow sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to point out, maybe I can, or rather not point out, maybe I can draw out the difference a little more extremely by saying that when a Christian philosopher talks about the concept of existence, he would say, at least if he's, I would posit that if he's being consistent, there's only one way to talk about it, and he would say that when you talk about existence, you can't talk about it abstractly. That is, you can't talk about existence without its extensionality, and its extensionality is the group of things that exist. But the Christian conception of the group of things that exist is fundamentally dual, and that is to say, it's fundamentally God and non-God. There's a very fundamental two-categoryness, if you will, to reality.
Yeah.
So when a Christian says Russ, Jimmy, and Dex Prime exist, what they're really saying is Russ, Jimmy, and Dex Prime are creations of God. Whereas
I'm fine with that distinction, of course.
But I think that there's a disagreement though, because at least, and I could be wrong, but it sounds to me, Dex, it sounds to me you're saying that there's this concept, namely existence, which can then be qualified, but is by itself the same, whereas the Christian is saying there's actually two distinct notions of existence being applied when we talk about God and reality and the differences between those things.
I could kind of understand where you're coming from, but I'd say I'm about 50% there, unfortunately. Because to me, yeah, you can create subcategories, but to me, there's existence, and then you're creating subcategories of it.
Right. And that's exactly what and I apologize for the interruption, but just to jump on that real quick, that is exactly accurate of what I think the non-Christian existentialist would hold to be true, and that's exactly what I would, and I think what Russ is very clearly here trying to disagree with.
Yeah, namely that we would have a creator and creature distinction to create all sorts of categories that aren't available to somebody who doesn't hold to that sort of a thing. I think maybe. Like for example, to touch on what you said, Jimmy, I'm just going to read a quote by M.L. Brunner. He says, whatever we come to know through philosophical speculation is for that very reason something quite different than that which we come to know through faith. Thus, what the philosophers call revelation is different from that which faith calls revelation. So then he says the God who is discovered through thought is always different from the God who reveals himself through revelation.
Okay, I'm back, guys.
So it's I think that sort of a thing is going on.
Hey,
Welcome back, Johnny.
sorry, gentlemen. It's not because you're here, but I actually have to go and take care of a little bit of business.
Okay.
I'll return in 15 minutes. Is that all right?
Yeah, pleasure meeting you, Tex.
Okay. Cheers. All right. I'll be back. Hopefully you guys are still here.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care, Dex.
Welcome back, Johnny.
Yeah, welcome back. I wanted to play that clip from Matt Dillahunty. I'm going to play that now, and I'm going to dismantle some of his arguments in the rebuttal because he had the second rebuttal against Knight and Bruggencate. So I want to, analyze some more of his statements, and hopefully, the people who are on the fence, they're seeing this because I am still atheist. I mean, it's unbelievable how thick-headed atheists are when they see that Matt Dillahunty was going down and down and down. He had absolutely no legs to stand on anymore at the end. It was completely done. It's not. I mean, you see the absurdity that the atheists have chosen. So, I mean, even after all that, they don't admit, man, our worldview has just crumbled right before our eyes. Let me show you this here. I'm going to screen share this. Okay, do you see that?
You experience is actually real.
You see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Let me see it.
All right, I'm going to play that now.
In the ultimate sense, it's been expressed in many ways. One of the more common is that you're a brain in a vat, which in the modern world has been reduced to you could be in the Matrix. There are many other ways to express.
Can you hear that, by the way? Is the sound too?
Yeah. Yeah, it
Good.
sounds good.
Very good.
This problem. How do you know you're not imagining a world while locked up in an asylum? And it relates to many other philosophical problems, some of which we're likely to address. The general consensus among philosophers seems to be that there's no current solution to this problem, and then it may be the case that a solution simply isn't possible. I think there are some good arguments against solipsism, but I'll concede, as do most philosophers, that there appears to be no ultimate absolute solution, but I'm stuck dealing with the reality I experience until someone offers me a way out, and I'm not going to arrogantly and counterproductively assume that you are all figments of my imagination.
Okay, at this point right there, see, it shows that it's all assumptions, so it's his reality. But the problem is he's using absolutist language as if this has to be true for another person. Then he should just remain silent and say, well, the reality that I experienced, okay, that's fine. I'm going to keep that to myself and my community, but I'm not going to impose that on anybody else. But the problem is he says, you Christian have to be like me. You Christian have to agree with my rules, what I say. The politicians have to agree, because that's the thing. The atheists want their politics how they see reality, their view of a reality to be imposed upon politics. For example, evolution. Their reality leads them to the conclusion, the absurd conclusion, that evolution is true, which is bogus. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the problem right there.
Could I point out another problem? I think
go right ahead, brother.
a lot of people think us presuppositionalists are arguing for foundationalism, and that needs to be addressed. We're not arguing that God is an axiom. An axiom would be considered an analytical truth. It's not something that has character or a person about it. It's not at all an axiomism that we would be arguing for as presuppositionalists, rather a first principia, as it's called by the reformers, a first principle. And our first principle here would be personal, not some mathematical notation on a piece of paper. It's quite different.
Absolutely, and this is one of the necessary elements. In fact, where atheists, for example, there was an atheist over here in this debate who later comes on and he says to Bruggencate, well, I just presuppose nature has revealed things to me. But then at the same time saying it's not conscious. You see how he contradicts himself? Well, if it's, how can something, when you say reveal, that presupposes the thing is personal already. So that's the funny thing. It contradicts. Otherwise, it cannot reveal. Nature just is what it is, and you perceive it as something. It is not revealing anything to you unless it is conscious. Okay. So if you want to say that nature is conscious, okay, then we have one attribute. Then we can talk about the rest of the necessary elements that are required to make sense of knowledge and so on and so forth. So
can I
already absurd at that point.
Can I add 2 points to that, John?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
The first one is with respect to what Russ says, which I think is exactly to the point in avoiding some of the judgments that or preconceived objections that people are going to bring to the table from what you're saying, Johnny, and Nightmare has so correctly predicted those. We're not arguing for foundationalism, and not only is it a matter of what the reference, what the object is behind our presuppositions or behind our first principle or our fundamentals, our system of knowledge, but also the fact that it requires no inferential effort on our part. Unlike Arminianism, we're not saying I have to do some reasoning on my part to understand that this is the case. Rather, God is given full responsibility for revealing himself, and since God cannot fail, my knowledge of him cannot fail to obtain.
Right.
And then the second point that I would make is I'll actually raise the stakes in case anyone is listening, but it's not only that Matt Dillahunty is inconsistent with respect to his treating his views as based on his assumptions, but it goes deeper than that. I think that the only would-be consistent epistemological solipsism, which was what he tried to defend against Seitan Bruggencate. The only would-be consistent epistemological solipsism is autotheism. Unless you are yourself the God of the universe, by whom all things can be defined and accounted for, which no sane person would accept, epistemological solipsism is not even an option. Matt Dillahunty accepts that he makes mistakes, that he does evil things, so on and so forth. And such beliefs are inconsistent with the idea that his so-called bottom-line observations, that his so-called experience can act as a foundation for everything else that he believes. Because at the end of it, his faculties will always be the faculties of a non-infinite, of a flawed, and of an evil person, all rendering his epistemology destroyed if it intends to rely on himself.
Yeah, just as if it's fallible.
Right.
And the thing is that that actually why some atheists who really understand this, I think that's why we have people becoming like Stalin and Pol Pot who end up calling themselves God, because they may have realized this so much that they say, well, yeah, we see that the only option we have, so we make ourselves the all-knowing ones. And this is why I think we see that trend that once the atheists come to power, and I think Matt Dillahunty is only that nice because he isn't in power yet, so he still holds on to some Christian values. Once that is done with, he is in power, he may be the next Joseph Stalin. Who knows? Because from time to time I've seen his attitude is so rude, so going in the direction of putting others down, that it's very likely that if I mean, I would never trust this guy, even in a position as judge of any small court, let alone the Supreme Court or the president. Never, ever.
Well, can I read a couple of quotes that hit on this? And then, I don't know if you know the reference. It would help me immensely if you knew the reference to this, Jimmy. But David Hume apparently has successfully argued that any person who allows chance into their epistemology could never know anything. That's exactly what he said. I just don't remember. I don't know the citation. I read it somewhere. But these are two quotes that I do have regarding this. Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote in Christ the Center, "Nothing can be known either of God or man until God has become man in Jesus Christ." Cornelius Van Til also wrote in a survey of Christian epistemology, he says, if one does not make human knowledge wholly dependent upon the original self-knowledge and consequent revelation of God to man, then man will have to seek knowledge within himself as the final reference point. Then he will have to seek an exhaustive understanding of reality. He would have to hold that if he cannot attain to such an exhaustive understanding of reality, he has no true knowledge of anything at all. Either man must then know everything or he knows nothing. This is the dilemma that confronts every form of non-Christian epistemology. So I guess the closing comment I would make on this is that if you do hold to an empirical epistemology, the only thing you could ever say is probability. I have this probability. You could never say you know something in the indubitable sense or the incontrovertible sense.
Yeah,
and this is bear out in the history of philosophy, where they start to redefine knowledge as something that doesn't require certainty. But what's interesting is, if you go to the Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, it does make reference to this issue, and it says that the philosophers disagree on whether knowledge requires certainty. It's not that they're all in agreement that knowledge doesn't need certainty, or it's not that they're all in agreement that knowledge must have certainty. It's that they're in a state of complete skepticism. And it's Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Index, page 267, if you want to read that.
Yeah, I also want to like to point out this moment that at the basic level, there has to be certainty. It doesn't matter whether you introduce probability. For example, if I have 100 hats here lying on the table, and under one of them is a marble, okay? So there's 100 hats lying, and the marble is covered under one of them. Then I have to know if the probability, of course, there's the probability now if I pick one at random, the ball being under it is 1 in 100, right? There's 100 hands, and under one of them is the marble. 1 in 100 is the probability. But for that, I have to be absolutely certain that the ball is at least under one of them. So probability does not get us away from the problem of absolute certainty at some level.
Well, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's only Fallibus 2, though, Johnny. That's the tricky part.
It's the what? Can you repeat that, Paul?
That doesn't get you all the way to infallibilism, though. You see, it doesn't do that alone. Doesn't do it, though, and I think that's
my point. What I'm saying is that when people talk about probability, they still need absolute certainty as the most important. Because Christians have no problem talking about probability things. We, for example, we say based on this and this, we calculate that there's a 1 in a 50 chance, for example, that this is the case. But the thing is, we must then also know that that is absolutely true. Otherwise, the 50% itself would be unjustified. It would fall apart.
Johnny, may I interject?
Yeah, I
Hi,
actually
Johnny.
want to play that clip of Matt Dillahunty and comment on that. We can talk about that afterwards, but if you have an important point to make, sure, go ahead right now, and then I'll play it further.
Well, you can judge whether it's important, but let's say your example of 100 hats and one of them being marble. Is that correct? That was the example. Okay, so right. Okay, so let's say you have a limited amount of knowledge. You know that there is 100 hats, and you know that one of them is marble. And you don't know which one, so you know that the probability is 1 in 100 based on all the knowledge that you have. Now, this knowledge is limited, right? But it's all the knowledge that you have. So, to say that you could be, let's say, wrong about that probability, you have to have a reason to believe that you can be wrong about that probability, yes?
There always can be a reason, whether I have it or not.
No, because once again, you have to have an actual reason to believe that something.
So unless I have a reason for something to be wrong, it must be true by necessity.
So, okay. So if you have a reason that something can be wrong, that means that this possibility of it being wrong you must actually have knowledge that you can be wrong. Now, if you had knowledge that you could be wrong, then why are you making? Then why are you making the 1 in 100 probability? Then your probability is actually incorrect because you have knowledge that you can be wrong, right? So that doesn't really make sense. So basically,
if we see somebody putting a marble under 100 hats, and we justifiably say, okay, then if it's under one of them, that means the probability. So we declare that there's a 1% chance if I pick any of these hats, not knowing myself which it is exactly, then the probability is 1%. But then again, I have to be 100% certain that it is 1%.
Well, but all you know is what you know. So you know that there's 100 hats. You know that there is a marble under one of these hats. You don't know anything else. So how can you
there's a marble? But the problem is, how do I know that there's a marble under that hats? That's the question.
Because it is actually a piece of knowledge that you possess because you've seen somebody put it under there.
How did that get into my possession? That piece of knowledge.
Experience.
Exactly. And how do I know that my senses are valid?
Experience.
How do I know that my past experience is valid? If it wasn't valid, my senses
so you know your validity or truth is determined by congruence in your entire world model and by correspondence of that model to experience. That's how we judge truth.
Right, but the problem is that everything that I experience could just be, you see, the person putting the marble under there could just be a figment of my imagination. The whole set of hats could be a figment of my imagination.
Well, Johnny, as you know, basically, the key word there is if. How do you know that this is actually a possibility?
So as long as it's not, if I don't know that it is a possibility, does it automatically mean that?
That's right. So why do you consider it then? Why do you?
Because if I don't know that, just because I don't know that another possibility exists does not mean that it doesn't exist.
But you also it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, and it doesn't mean that it does exist.
Right.
Therefore, it is absolutely irrelevant.
Not really.
Why? How is it relevant?
How is it relevant? Because it still could be a possibility, so I still can't make a knowledge.
Right. Okay. I see what the issue is.
Be a possibility. Hold on, you have to actually know.
Wait. Hold on. I understand what Dex Prime is saying. So unless you know, this is the issue. When you have a consideration of probability, this is suspended on the idea that that certain things that I conceive of can happen. For example, if let's just say, for the sake of conversation, because this is not what's being argued here. Let's just say, for the sake of conversation, I know it to be unquestionably the case. I know it to be indubitably the case that there is a set of hats before me that number 100, and somebody has hidden a marble under one of them. So that part of the equation is unquestionable. Now, the question then is, how do I even know, given that I try to guess the the hat under which sits the marble. How do I know that it's the case, or how do I even make a probability statement that it's 1 out of 100? That it's 1% probable that I'll be correct, right? I would have to know that it's even possible to be wrong in order to make that claim that probability statements aren't trustworthy or something to that effect. That's what you're communicating, right, Dex?
Well, it's about right, except I'd go even further in that you don't need this whole unquestionable thing, because we only know what we know, and that is all that we actually have to base the probability on, right?
Yeah, but how do we know anything? That's the question still. I mean, we know what we know for sure, but look, what do we know, and how do we know it?
Could I interject a little bit?
This is a different question. So if we could discuss it.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how do we know anything? So first of all, we have to agree that the knowledge, okay, that our ability to is essentially make models of reality in our head, okay. It's one of those things where I think we have
knowledge
to
doesn't have to be true. So that means knowledge doesn't have to be true.
No, truth is when knowledge corresponds to reality.
No, but knowledge is defined as justified true belief. So it has to be.
Sure. Okay. Let's say that. So knowledge is defined as justified true belief. That's fine. So in other words, it's a synonym of truth. Is that all right?
It has to contain both truth and justification. Not a synonym, because justification has to be there too. If it just turns out true by coincidence, it wasn't knowledge.
Would you add that it has to be believable as well?
True by coincidence. No, I don't agree with that.
Really quick. Let's also point out that you can't define knowledge as truth unless you want to say that. At least if you define knowledge as truth, and knowledge here means justified true belief, you're now treating
right. We're running the same problem. We're running the same problem earlier that I mentioned about equivocation. There are different kinds of knowledge, right?
But even further, we would then be saying that doxastic attitudes, which are accurate, are now truth themselves. So the fact that that I'm sitting on a chair, it is reality in that I believe it. If we're defining knowledge as, or excuse me, if we're defining truth as knowledge. So I would prefer to say one indicator of a statement or of a proposition being true is that it corresponds to reality. And knowledge is when you hold a positive doxastic attitude towards that proposition and you have reason for doing so.
So when you say doxastic position, you're saying you at least believe it, right?
Yes.
Okay. If I could just clarify, I think a little bit better where Johnny's coming from Dex, and I understand what Dex is saying as well. I think what Johnny is saying is first you have to know that you're not the hat and you're not the marble and you're not the probability, the word probability or something like that.
All of that too?
Yeah, you'd have to know those, and those would be things that are just taken for granted in order to come to a procedural knowledge, which would be experiential knowledge, right? And so I could see where Dex and Johnny are both trying to make their points.
Yeah, so as I was saying,
good point.
Yeah, as I was saying that the knowledge is not just synonymous of truth. Knowledge is justified true belief. So if something happens to be, if I claim something is true, but I don't have any justification, it actually does turn out to be true. I didn't really know it either. For example, if I say, I know Obama is the president, but I just made a guess that came out to be true, it wouldn't be a knowledge claim that I made. It wasn't really knowledge then.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I think when we're saying knowledge, we're just using. There are different kinds of knowledge. I don't know if you knew that. Just like there are different.
Yeah, I'm talking about the justified true belief. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. You're concerned with propositional knowledge. What Dex is pointing out is we still need to utilize procedural knowledge or experiential knowledge during this process.
So
how is experiential knowledge not justified, or how is it not true?
Well, because it would be primarily inductive, wouldn't it?
Like, give me an example.
Sure. I know that I'm the same person today as I was yesterday, but I don't know if I'll be the same person tomorrow.
No, but is that true?
Well, inductively it is. It's always been the case in the past.
Yeah, so it is true that I was the same person yesterday as I am today. That's a truth. That's a truth, right?
It's probabilistically true. Yes.
So, Johnny,
Even if
question.
it is, even if
if I
he
may.
would say it's probabilistic,
How do you justify
it's
belief?
probabilistically true. But even if he said that it's probabilistically true, we would still say, for example, let's say I said it's 99% true, then I can say, yeah, I know for 99% that I'm the same person today.
Right.
But then I have to be 100. Then it has to be 100% true that it's 99% so.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying, Johnny. I'm just trying to clarify what Dex is trying to say. I understand where he's coming from.
Okay.
Johnny, may I? How do we justify beliefs? Sorry. How do we justify? Sorry. You said justified true belief. Is that how you define
Justify
knowledge?
true belief.
Okay. So belief is something that is evaluation on knowledge, right? You either or is evaluation on a fact. So you either believe a fact or you don't believe a fact. So and then so truth, that's determined by correspondence to reality and determined by congruence within the model. So justification. Where does the justification come from?
Really quick, can I
Justification is the
qualify
reason for why something is so.
Can I qualify the statement about belief?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would just qualify it by saying belief is not I can't even remember how you define it now. It doesn't necessarily need to be treated as a fact in the definition. But when we talk about the belief condition for knowledge, we're saying that you have to hold that a proposition is true. But the claim that it is knowledge doesn't necessitate that it is true. It just necessitates that it's a proposition that you hold to be true.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So what about the justification part? So how do we justify?
By giving reasons or explanations as to why it is so. Because of course, you can just make any claim and may that be a guess. So that of course won't count as knowledge. If I just guess something, it's not knowledge, even if it turns out to be true.
Right. So would you say that I guess I'm misdefining things. Okay. So justification would be when you have a piece of knowledge, and you are essentially so it corresponds to reality and it is congruent with the model. Would that be enough to justify something?
Real quick.
What model?
Let me. Real quick. When you say
the explanations that you have given.
When you say it corresponds to reality, Dex, you mean specifically that you experience that it corresponds to reality, right? Like you perceive.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yes. It's
Just
basically you're comparing your worldview to what is actually happening, and the two align.
Right.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
and I guess the easiest way to do this is, and
Yeah,
we
but
do this
they're
all the time,
always
by making predictions.
I mean, due to confirmation bias, they'll end up aligning. So that's, I mean, how does that work? How does that get us out?
It's part of the problem. Yes, that is an issue. You can have confirmation bias, of course.
Then of course, if we don't have something external and transcendental, it still falls apart. I mean, we can never claim actual reality.
I'm not. Well, do we need to? Because
we do it all the time. I mean, we do it all the time. We always use our language is based on that. We speak as such, as if we know that there's actual reality out there.
Of course, and basically, and the reason for that is because our worldview is congruent to that, and our experience is congruent to that. That's why we do it. And there is no exception, right? So there is no reason for us to believe that it's otherwise.
But
but just because that's the problem. Just because we don't believe that there's a reason to be otherwise, that doesn't mean that there isn't a reason otherwise.
It also doesn't mean that there is.
Some atheists say that, oh, because when I've exhausted all possibilities, that means the only two possibilities that can remain, it is true that the only two possibilities that remain are these two. That's a false statement. That's a false claim right there.
But Johnny, I don't think that's what Dex is saying. I
No,
think
it's
what
not
Dex
what
is
but
saying.
I've heard some atheists go in that direction, saying that, well,
Right.
if I can think of any other possibility, it's all about I. If I can think about other possibilities,
Well,
that
Right.
has
to be
But
fair,
Johnny, I think
let's
Dex
deal
is
with
making.
Dex's. Let's deal with Dex's
Yeah, I just want to
position,
throw that
not
out there
everybody
because I want to
else's.
really play that clip and want to comment on that. You guys
Go-
handle
go
that,
ahead.
and then I'll
Can we-
play that clip to the end then, because I wanted to do that before we. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me make a quick comment here, and then I think Russ probably has something more in depth to say. Dex, just to reply to what you said, I actually agree with you that I actually agree with the at least prima facie. I'm agreeing with the concept that you're putting forth in terms of like we develop these models of reality through experience, and this idea of congruity. But I think that there again is some baggage behind that, and in this case, I would say it doesn't seem like you can get away from. It's not even just confirmation bias, but it doesn't seem like you can get away from positing experience as a part of your worldview. In other words, when you say, "I went to the mall yesterday," this is just a hypothetical, or when you say, "I'm sitting down talking to Jimmy Stevens," that is a belief, and there's no way to reference experiences apart from that. You cannot deal with perception as if it were raw data. You can actually only deal with concepts and beliefs that you have about them. Or even if you can deal with them as raw data, they're at least always correlated and right beside the concepts that correspond to them anyways. So
You're
when you
absolutely right.
say, okay, so as long as we agree there, so I think that the problem then is that I don't have any problem with that, except that I don't believe that anyone would consider themselves flawless or wholly trustworthy or all-knowing. And if you are none of those things, then I don't see how a worldview is anything other than a set of bald proclamations.
Right. So, my response to that would be, all-knowing, definitely not. It's not possible. We're finite beings. But in terms of trustworthy, once again, we have memories. We build models from these memories. So we kind of are able to construct a worldview in which we are trustworthy, in which we can make predictions. These predictions come true. We make other predictions. These predictions come true. Now, there is, of course, the catch is, what if we're all wrong, right? Like, that's what everybody says. Well, the problem with that is basically, if we're all wrong, then this entire conversation is moot. So there has to be a presupposition, and I think it's the foundation of everything is just that we can know some truth, that it is essentially possible for us to know some truth, right? And
Right, but that belief, Dex, and I apologize, I don't mean to interject, but I think I'll forget, and I think this is really to the point. That specific belief that you have memories, and in that sense you can trust yourself to, or at least rely on yourself for knowledge to a limited extent, which I agree with.
Right.
I don't think that your model actually allows for that belief, and I think that's the problem. I think that Christianity does provide impetus for that belief, but I don't think that your position can remain consistent with that.
Well, basically, my position is that the model is all there is. So essentially, I guess if you were trying to make an argument to, if you're trying to make an argument to justify, for example, knowledge, an actual, what do you call it, philosophical argument, it's basically circular, right? So it ends up being a presupposition. So in other words, your entire worldview is And this is where congruence comes from, right? So when your entire worldview, all that you know, all that you understand, is congruent, that is what we call, I guess, that is what we call truth. That is what we call knowing truth. And the problem with that, and that is all that we can do, and the issue with that is that these hypotheticals that, well, what if you're completely wrong, we don't know if they're true, we don't know whether they're wrong. So all we have to work with is this model. This model tells us that we can know some truth. This model tells us that we have, we can make predictions, and in reality. So there's basically no need for an outside source. It is a self-contained system. And yeah, I suppose that's it. And the problem with that, of course, and the issue with adding a deity to this is it doesn't solve that, because you are sure, the deity may know everything, but you are still this falsible, limited being with a limited set of knowledge. So even if a deity is absolutely certain about what it's saying, you don't know that the deity is absolutely certain. You can't know. You can't have certainty ever.
So God can't reveal things to us such that we can know them for certain?
By definition, no, because we are limited beings.
Yeah, but limited beings. But why can an all-powerful God not reveal things to us in such a way, even if we ourselves are not all-knowing, that we can know it for certain?
I could say that he can by making us omnipotent. I don't think that any of us are going to claim that we are omnipotent, though.
No, why does he have to make us omnipotent?
Sorry, omniscient, all-knowing. Omniscient, all-knowing, because that is really what we're getting at here, right? Because,
but why? What I want to ask you then is, why does God have to make us omniscient to make us certain about certain claims, not all claims, but about certain knowledge claims, about certain truths?
Because you don't know everything. So that
I don't know everything.
whole issue of what if you could be wrong? What if you could be wrong about what the deity is telling you?
So maybe this will.
I could not be wrong about what the deity is telling us if the deity makes me certain about that thing.
How?
If I can give you,
how is it relevant? I mean, we don't have to explain the exact mechanism.
No. Of course you do, because
that's the problem. No, if you're gonna say, of course, see, you're using absolutist language now. You're saying, of course I do. See, that's the self-contradictory thing, because now you're again using absolutist language of saying that I have to do something. So I'm going to ask you, is it absolutely true that I have to? That it's of course that I have to?
If you don't, then I don't understand what you're talking about, correct?
Is that absolutely true that you don't understand what I'm talking about?
Not in the sense that you mean.
I don't think that's what Dex was arguing.
In my world view?
No, I don't. I don't think that's what you were contending, Dex. I think that Johnny is misunderstanding.
Maybe I can bring some.
There's, if I may, just quickly explain the difference. Johnny, for him, absolute certainty means you know everything, therefore you know absolutely that you cannot.
Well, his position
correct?
is or have revelation from somebody who does. I think that's the qualifier he would make. But just really quickly, something was said.
No, but that contradicts that definition. That contradicts the definition. So absolute certainty, what is it? I'm not really understanding that. What is absolute certainty?
Right.
Absolute certainty would be that there's a claim that I could not be wrong about.
Right. And how do you arrive to that?
By
how
God
do you arrive to
me in a way that I could know it for certain, which He does for all of us.
How? What's the mechanism?
Okay, real quick.
I don't need to know the exact mechanism in every case. There are some things that God intrinsically.
So you don't know how you know.
Do I have to?
I would give a different answer than Johnny.
Yeah, that's the.
I would just say
internalist versus externalist.
Okay, sure, go ahead. Hey, brother Roy, how are you doing?
Hey, Ray.
Hey, Johnny. I like what you're talking about. You're talking my language, Johnny. Does absolute truth exist? Absolutely.
Hey, Dex, just really quickly, this is how I would respond to it. I think this is something that he's missing, that you're missing, Johnny, not because of anything, not because of anything that you know pun intended. But
Yeah, sure, go ahead,
because of some things that Cy Ten Bruggencate doesn't bring out.
Sure, go ahead, bro.
If I was to ask this question, is it necessary that certain propositional truths are in place in order to make any probabilistic claims? Would it not follow that we cannot divorce probability from certainty? And
Yeah,
would it not follow certainty? We can't divorce certainty from probability.
Exactly. That's the whole time I've been trying. I've made a whole hangout
Right.
explaining that very thing.
Okay, but so hold on just a second to clarify. What Dex is pointing to is called procedural knowledge, right? It's an appeal to experience and probability. We could be wrong, all of these things, right?
Yeah, but we could not be wrong about the probability.
we can't
Otherwise,
be
the whole
wrong.
thing
No,
falls.
hold on, just really quickly.
Okay.
First of all, we have to know we're not the numbers on the page doing the math. We're not the probability itself, right? I mean, I think we would all agree with that.
Yeah.
But that is something that's smuggled in. But here's the kicker, though. It seems to me that propositional truths like that cannot be divorced from the other two types of knowledge, right? Experiential and procedural, or you could say personal knowledge, like I know my wife. When I say the word, when I say I know my
they are
wife,
connected. Yeah, I agree.
that's not the same thing as I know that she's my wife, right?
Yeah.
But it does presume, or at least preclude, that I'm making a distinction.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that can't be divorced from the procedural knowledge that Dex is speaking of, but it also can't be isolated.
No, absolutely. That I agree with that.
I would say that's correct.
I mean, to me, this is the biggest confusion. It seems to me that there are different kinds of knowledge, just like there are different kinds of belief. So when people say, "How do you know that?"
Yeah, you can distinguish.
Well, hold on. Like, so for example, how do you fix the carburetor? Already presupposes that you know that you're not the carburetor. That's the helping word. That's propositional knowledge. How is
That's the
procedural knowledge?
It's the first law of logic. Yeah.
Well, we use both, don't we? All the time. I mean, propositional and procedural knowledge.
For sure.
Wait, I want to
the
find
two
out what
are-
Russ is confused about. Russ, what are you confused about?
I'm not confused about any of this. What I'm giving you
Well,
is
you
an
just said
argument
that
against.
this is the confusing part.
No, I'm saying this is
I'm not
this is
following.
the
What's the
no,
confusing?
this is
I got
the
here late.
confusing. I'm saying that this is the confusing part between people who might be listening to the to the exchange between Dex and Johnny. That's what I'm saying. I've already resolved this.
Are they disagreeing on absolute truth being absolute?
Well, see, that's the problem. There are different kinds of truths as well.
No,
and
see,
that's
there's
a
no
whole other
problem.
problem.
There's either absolute truth or there's not. Which side are you on?
My position is absolute truth.
Right.
But
okay. So
there is
then you
also
don't have
no, hold on, no, Roy, just pay attention real quick.
No.
There's
Listen,
also
it's
there's
real
also
simple.
procedural. No,
Here's
there's
where you're
also
confused.
procedural. No,
You
I'm
can't
not
put an
confused.
adjective on truth.
Because
But that's
knowledge
what-
is procedural knowledge.
See, truth is
That's
truth.
my personal experience.
There's no such thing as subjective truth, right?
Yeah, subjective truth is
No,
an oxymoron.
No, what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
There's no such thing. So don't even include that. Let's talk about what's real. Let's not
When
talk
if
about
we
what
say
could be
subjective
real.
truth, it's already we can dismiss every single claim that they make.
Amen.
Guys, I think you're misunderstanding Russ though. The point
Very
Russ is
much
making
so.
is about knowledge claims, not about truth.
Knowledge.
Well,
There are
so
different
knowledge
kinds of
is-
knowledge.
Yeah, but Russ is saying I think that is different. I just want
Who doesn't agree that knowledge is truth? And if it's not truth, it's not knowledge. Who here disagrees with that?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are
Then
different
there's
kinds
nothing
of
more to talk
truth,
about,
just like
because
there are
now you're
different kinds of.
digressing into subjective truth.
Yeah, but
and
No, I'm not.
subjective this.
No, I'm not. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on
Okay.
for a second.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Hear me out. No, what I'm saying is that there are different kinds of knowledge. There is propositional knowledge, which is not subjective. It's objective. But what Dex is describing is procedural knowledge. That is subjective. That's experiential. There's another category of knowledge that epistemologists have recognized called personal knowledge. Like I know my wife. Or you could use a biblical example, right? Adam knew Eve. As a result, that created a bunch of children, all of us.
Yeah, but brother,
That's not the same kind of knowledge. It's also not the same kind of truth.
Well, that's
when
not what we're talking about. That's excluded. You're going beyond the box.
No, I'm not putting you on. No, you just came in here, Roy.
Whether you know it or not, understand it or not, embrace it or not, or even near it or not, it's still true.
Right. No, I'm making the distinction that truth is relative to the knower, but truth itself is not relative. There's a huge difference.
Good. And that's an assumption I already made, so we don't even have to go there.
That's right. That's all I'm saying. So what I'm saying is that when Dex is using the word knowledge, he's appealing to procedural truths. When Johnny is using knowledge, he's appealing to propositional truths, which are objective. That's all I'm pointing out here.
Right, man.
Okay,
for
I'm
a
on the
second.
same page with you now. Good, wonderful. Thanks, Russ.
Roy, if I may, just want to clear something up. So this propositional procedural. Okay, so truth, basically, the way I see us arriving at truth is we model reality in our brain, right, in our mind, right. So when what we experience matches reality. When what we experience matches the model that we have, we call that part of the model truth. So that means it corresponds to reality. So what would that be?
Reality is subjective then.
So would that be propositional or?
I would say it is. Did you know that the
it sounded like reality.
Just one more, and just so one more part of the model, if I may. So the other part of the model is basically when we examine our model of reality, and we notice that there's congruence within that model. In other words, we're not looking at experience anymore. We're just looking at the model, and we notice that everything in that model makes sense. So what kind of knowledge is that?
Well, I would say, first of all, it presupposes reference to true propositions, right? We have to know that the events are not us before that occurs. So the correspondence theory...
That's part of the model.
Rests on reference to true propositions. So in other words, propositional knowledge, not procedural knowledge, has to be presupposed to even make sense of the coherence theory of truth.
Well, I don't think any of us have issues with presuppositions, right? I mean, it's kind of
Well, I'm just pointing out that it's circular.
Yeah, but
correspondence theory is
you see the problem.
I don't think we have a choice.
Another person. That's the basic problem, because anybody can make a model and they say my model is right, and if you don't follow my model of reality, then I'm going to judge you for it. See, that's the problem.
Of course they can, but
but that leads to absurdity.
So we have this presupposition that there is actually a reality, yes, that things actually exist.
I don't hold to the correspondence.
But that's not enough, because then everybody can say that okay, these things actually exist, but my model is this is what actually exists.
Well, okay, so if
we need to. I'm with Johnny on that. We need to establish what is reality. When we're all on the same page with what is reality, we can go to step 2.
To clarify, I don't follow any of the theories of truth that you'll find in your secular philosophy books at all.
That's fine. That's fine. But obviously, I'm sharing mine, so you understand my perspective. So basically, what was I saying? I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys.
I'm just saying I don't follow the correspondence theory because it's circular. I don't follow the coherence theory because it's circular. I don't follow any of those.
Can you give me on circular theory?
Right.
May I back this up even more so that I'm on the same page with Dex? Because I'm a little
okay, go ahead.
Dex, in the beginning, God, not God.
And by the way, the definition of truth is what corresponds to the mind of God.
I agree with that. So, Dex, in the beginning God or in the beginning not God? What stance do you take?
I don't know.
Well, decide.
My answer is really I don't know.
Yeah, but you got to know. So listen. In the beginning God, that's one stance. In the beginning not God, that's the other stance. Which stance do you take?
I find that the first stance is unnecessary.
So you take in the beginning, not God. That's where you stand. That's your presupposition to your worldview, correct?
Sure.
Okay. So I take the opposite stance. I take in the beginning God, and then everything makes sense to me, because everything that's not true is what God already has said to be true, and if you say it's not true, then that's a lie. See, the Lord says in the latter days of which we are living today, many will come and call the truth a lie, and the lie the truth. And I'm seeing that in these hangouts. So
Right.
unless you know what is true, then you're not going to make any sense to those of us who do. Does that make sense?
Of course. And I know it's true, and I'm trying to kind of put forward my model of what truth is. So, and like, for example, in my model, so what makes the deity true? Is it
See,
just,
with
is it a
your
presupposition?
worldview of being in the beginning, not God, you're not even starting with truth. Now you're being subjective in
Yeah,
every
he's
part of
defining
what
truth
you
as what.
Sure, I'm trying to consider your position.
That's the
Yes or
problem.
no?
Pardon me?
He's defining truth at what fits his model. That's the problem. That makes truth subjective.
Oh wait, we could go the other route though with this though.
It does.
Dex, let me ask you this quick question. Would you agree with this, that truth is a statement that reflects reality, or that accurately reflects reality?
No.
Yeah. Yes.
No.
You would agree
I
with
wouldn't
that?
buy that.
Okay. So here's the next question though. Just a second.
Uh,
What would you say that statements require a mind?
Johnny's
yes.
definition is best.
What would you say to that question, Dex?
Yes, statements require a
so-
mind, of course.
Okay, so consider this, and I'm just putting this out here. So if there are eternal truths, and there are
What is an
eternal
eternal
statements, something that's necessary. You could use necessary truths if you want.
Like existence,
It could
for
not,
example.
right? They could not fail to be,
Right.
fail to be true. So
Right.
if we have eternal truths, so I'm using eternal and necessity synonymously here.
Okay.
What would you say that if there are necessary statements and statements requires mind, then we would have to have a necessary mind?
No, because basically a necessary truth to me is a statement that my model cannot be coherent without. It's if we remove it, like for example, if I say I don't exist, nothing makes sense anymore. If I say that I can't know truth, nothing makes sense anymore. The model falls apart. So I really have no choice but to accept these as truth. That's what
is
I
that
would
a
call a
statement
necessary
itself?
truth.
But is existence exists a statement?
I would just say existence. I
So
mean,
if you
existence,
say- right.
existence is a tautology.
Right. So if it's a necessary truth, and
Mhm.
statements require minds, why wouldn't this require a necessary mind, since it would be a necessary statement?
I don't really know what you mean by necessary mind.
Well, it would mean an eternal mind,
I mean,
right?
The only mind I have is mine. I don't really understand what you mean by eternal mind either.
Okay.
I mean, okay, so in my model, right, these statements fall apart. Without these statements, the model falls apart, and that is what I base necessity on. That's it. So, in other words, I don't really see where the other mind comes in, because the only model that I have is my own.
Right, I understand that's your position, but I'm saying, could you see from my position how I could account for eternal truths and eternal statements and eternal models?
These statements don't make sense for me. So okay, so let's say there's a greater mind that's omniscient. It sort of knows everything, right? So this mind it shares a presupposition that I share. Like for example, that existence is necessary, right? Because it exists.
Sure. I would say.
Now the problem is that my worldview is still limited. The amount of knowledge that I have is still limited. So even if this mind shares with me that, hey, you know what, that presupposition you have, it's correct. It is as correct as it gets.
But it doesn't say that. It also is all powerful.
Is what I have to work with.
Right.
That's why all powerful
I understand what you're saying.
Essential too. If you have just an all-knowing being, just let me tell you this, it wouldn't be enough. That's why when Thunderfoot brings up the ghost that can never lie, it's not enough when an entity knows everything to make you knowledgeable, because it also has to be omnipotent, so that it can make you, at any given time, it can make you certain of things. Otherwise, that is not possible too. So we have these two essential attributes, necessary attributes already to justify knowledge.
Okay, so when it comes to omnipotence, right? I don't accept that an omnipotent being can, for example, break laws of logic, right? So because
of course it can't break the laws of logic. I understand it, because the very nature of God is logical. So it doesn't have to break the laws of logic.
Right, because I can't even comprehend what that means, right?
Something's being missed here.
So
something is being missed here. When you say God is omnipotent, are you getting that proposition that God is omnipotent from the Bible, since we're not talking about Judaism or Zoroastrianism? Because the Bible clearly explains how God is omnipotent, right?
Yep.
Well, not that clearly.
Well, it clearly explains that God does everything except what He is bound by His nature. For example, God cannot lie. One instance, God cannot sin, and these are all necessary, by the way, because if God could lie, then again the whole model would fall apart. It would
right. If God lied, He wouldn't be God. By definition, God cannot lie.
Yeah, and when you suppose a deceiver God, your whole worldview falls apart. You can't make any knowledge from that moment on.
So
that's why I'm asking the question, though, is, how do Christians define omnipotence? I'm not concerned with how Plato or Hegesippus or any of these other philosophers did. I'm not here to defend their wonderful thought thinking itself concept.
That's why we can show that only the Christian God has all the necessary elements to have a sound foundation for knowledge. No other deity has that.
So that's all I was asking about, Dex. Where do you get these propositions that God is omnipresent? If we're talking about the Christian God, God has revealed Himself in Scripture on the Christian worldview. So how does Scripture define omnipotence? I can answer that. I'm just playing for the principal character here.
I'd love to answer that. So, so if we define ourselves as limited beings, right? And so you know my position on knowledge. It's basically all that we know, right? So so this idea of certainty, requiring omnipotence, would that be correct? Does certainty require
Certainty requires either us to be all-knowing, or it requires us to know somebody who knows all things and can and does reveal it to us, such that we can know it.
That's what Dex is trying to get to.
Okay.
Let me explain this. The issue with that.
May I?
The issue with that.
Just a moment, brother.
Yeah, go ahead.
Dex. Follow this. It's easier if you follow this. What Johnny just said is absolutely true. Okay, so if you start where Johnny just started, and I'll say it another way, the way I like to say it, it's fun, funny, and fruitful. In my mind, you may not find it such, but if you understand what I'm about to say, and you start there, you will never not know what is truth. Okay? So, if you don't know everything there is to know about everything there is to know, then you need to turn to the one who does. Does that make sense to you, yes or no?
No.
No?
Because how do I know that anything this
doesn't matter what you know?
Is
okay, you're taking it one step too far. Listen to the words that are coming out of my mouth. Don't think any further than I'm putting on the table. If you don't know everything, and I assume you don't, is that correct?
I don't know, right? But let's assume.
If you don't know everything, then you don't know that you know everything. Therefore, you don't know everything. And unless you know everything, you can't know everything. Now,
correct.
If you don't know what truth is, because it's outside those things that you say you know, there's things you don't know. So the truth lies in what you don't know. Do you understand that?
No, the truth only lies in what I do know. What I don't know, I don't know.
Okay,
the problem is what you claim to know.
Do you know that in the beginning God...
Hold on, guys. I have a question real quick for Dex then. So that means that nobody Anybody that has knowledge that you don't have, that could be telling the truth, that means it's a lie. In other words, meaning I could be telling you the truth
Why would you
about
say
something
that?
you do not know,
Truth.
Dex,
Go
and you are saying that it's a lie because you would know if it's a lie or the truth.
So
That's what
if
Roy's
you
telling
were
you in a
telling-
nutshell. He's
Well,
trying
no,
to tell you
because
that you don't know
no,
what you
because
don't know.
right, and what I don't know, I actually don't have an opinion on, right? So I don't think it's a lie, and I don't think it's the truth. It is irrelevant.
Right, but
to
if but if you stand on something in your worldview that is not true,
Right.
and you don't know it's true because it's in the realm of what you don't know,
Why would I be standing on it if I
and you
don't
need
know it?
to know that. Do you understand that? You do need to know that. You just can't not have an opinion about it and think it's neutral. You need to know. And people like us will come to you and bring you this knowledge, explain it to you, share it with you, do the best we can, and then you have one of two things. You can profess it or you can suppress it. Are you with me, Dex?
Incorrect. I would say the other option is I just don't consider it as intelligible. If
Yeah,
I
you
don't
can do whatever you
understand
want
it,
with it, and that's called suppressing it, because if you don't agree with the truth and agree with God and profess that God is truth, then yeah, you're doing the opposite, which is suppressing it. You can do anything you want with it, but I just want you to know that
Sure.
that's what you're doing. Do you realize that, yes or no?
well, by your definition, sure, I'll go with that. But once again, I don't know what I don't know, so I really have no opinion of that.
Right, and what you don't know is that God started the beginning, right? You don't know that.
I don't know that. No.
No. And do you want to know that?
If it's the truth, sure.
It is the truth. Yes. So now know that. I'm done. Go ahead.
Yeah, another way I also wanted to point out the thing is, you see, if you what you claim to know, let's say you know 1% of the things in the universe, and 99% you don't, which is a large number, but just for sake of illustration. So then
Right.
it's still possible that the 1% that you claim to know could be contradicted by the 99% that you don't claim to know. You
Okay,
see,
so-
you have to be
so-
certain. So that's why you can't just say I
That's
know
actually
what
a
I know.
bad model. That's actually a bad model. Okay, so I know 1%, right? So is that 1% false, or is that 1% just
You
knowledge?
claim to know 1%. Let's put it that way.
All it is a claim, because if you don't know everything,
All it is
you can't say it's true.
I'm
You
sorry, I
can't-
have to put in.
Do I
You
do I
can't.
actually know the 1%?
It's self-refuting,
Whoa,
and if you don't understand self-refuting,
Okay, one at a time.
then that's the first
Dex,
problem.
you just said you know 1%, yes?
Do I actually know the 1%?
Well, can
Do,
we
do I actually know
have,
the 1%?
can we have like
You
2 minutes
said-
on the mic in turns
I'm-
or something
I'm-
like
yeah,
that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's better. Who was next? I think Dex was next. Dex, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, we've
Okay,
brought
thank you.
Dex. Give him a moment here.
Yeah, I've given him. Go ahead, Dex.
Okay, so
Sure.
let's say I actually know 1%. Okay, I actually know that. It's a hypothetical. Okay, so that is all that I have to base my.
But I can blow a hole in that right
Right.
now. and I will.
So
Hey, brother, Roy, let's
if you-
let's
If
time.
you don't know
hang on,
everything there is
hang
to
on.
know, how do you know it's 1%?
Well, we're making a
minutes, please.
hypothetical, right? I mean, that's what this is all about.
No, no hypotheticals. I will
So
not
if-
go in hypotheticals. No, don't do that, because you're just wasting your time and ours. Start with the truth. Start with
I agree.
reality.
Okay.
Start with
I know all
reality.
I know.
Let's say you know something. I don't care what percentage you say it is, but don't say any percentage. You know something.
I know.
Go ahead.
I was not the one who brought up the 1%. But anyways, yes, I know all I know. What's next?
I was just gonna
Okay,
say.
what's
much
next
do I
is
know?
all you know may
I
not be
thought-
true based on the fact that you don't know what's in the other side that contradicts
Please.
whatever you say.
Please.
If it contradicts whatever you say, then it's
Please.
not true. Do you know that? Yes
Please.
or no?
Didn't we
Hang
all
on.
just agree
I-
2 minutes?
I
2 minutes
can-
uninterrupted.
Yeah,
Uninterrupted 2
yeah,
minutes.
Please give that 2 minutes, because we have to time it, bros. Otherwise, it's not gonna get us anywhere.
Okay,
Otherwise,
so
we'll
I
just
can
turn into a shouting
respond to
match.
that. May I?
Okay, yeah, Dex,
So
go
may
ahead. Go Go ahead.
Okay.
You have
So,
to. And then
this
we
whole
time.
idea-
Just say when you're done if you don't use the full 2 minutes. Sure.
Okay, so I'll say when I'm done. Okay, so all I know is what I know, right? And this hypothetical that I may know something that that I may not know something that contradicts everything I know is just a hypothetical. I don't know this, and I don't know if it's true. I don't know whether it's false. So it's really irrelevant, completely irrelevant to everything that I know. There's no reason for me to consider it because
I
it's
disagree.
irrational.
I disagree.
Because it's not
very
a part
relevant.
of.
That's okay, bro. Just a moment.
If I don't know about it, then why would it be relevant to me?
Because it doesn't matter, because even if you don't know about it, it's still true. And if it affects you, it still affects you, even if you don't know about it. Oop-oopy-doo.
But I don't know that it affects me, right? I don't know that it affects me because
I understand that you don't know, but
about
get with
it,
someone who does know.
and
That's
I don't
my
know that
point.
it's
My
true.
point is get with
I know
someone who
what
does know. And when you don't know what you don't know, get with someone
I
who
don't
does
know.
know what you don't know. You know what I mean? Dex, you're running from truth.
Were you done?
Dex, you're running from truth, and I just want to point this out because I've seen these. Listen, we got a lot of very intelligent people in this hangout right now, including you, Dex. I don't really know you, but I know you to be an intelligent person to be able to hang with us.
Of course.
Listen, I want to put this out here
I
because
appreciate it.
thank you, and I appreciate you appreciating it because I don't have anything against you. I never will. I want to be your friend if that's possible. If not, that's okay. I'll still look at you as my friend. Listen, we here are all attempting to do one thing, just to love on you. That's it, just to love you. Just to love you and give you an opportunity to make the wisest possible decision for Dex. And I know that can happen when lights come on. And I mean this, of course, spiritually speaking, emotionally speaking. And I just want to say to you that if you don't start in the very beginning with the truth, if your stance and your whole entire, whatever it is you're building, is set on sand and not on the solid rock of truth, then it will crumble one day. It will crumble. And I just ask you, since you have that opportunity right now, to look at this rock with all of this truth standing on top of it, and you can too. I just want you to be a little bit more open to what I'm hearing you say, because you're saying it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant, the truth outside of what I know. No, it's not. And thinking like that is going to get you and your family in trouble. That's all I'm saying. I just want you to take a look at what you're missing, and what you're missing is the rock. The rock is Jesus Christ. I know you've heard this. I know you believe this. I know you have a hard time putting it all together. I know you need more evidence, but you really don't. You just think you do. All you need to do is understand that you don't understand, and that God knows more than you, just a little bit more than you. Submit to that knowledge, let Him speak to you, and let Him give you what you don't know. That's really what it's all about. I exhort you to take a look at that. That's what's important here. The great debate, I don't belong to it. I belong to what I refer to as religious discussion. I'm having a religious discussion with you. I'm not having a religious debate with you. I don't debate the truth. I just put it out there and let you examine it. I'm done. Thanks, Dex.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's awesome.
That was very succinctly packaged.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anybody have anything to add to that?
Well, I would add to this that the gospel does speak about the regeneration of knowledge. Well, not the gospels in particular, but the New Testament does have a bearing on it.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to read the one passage that comes to mind. I think maybe this is what Roy was talking about. This is in Romans 12. It says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." And it goes on to explain the renewing of the mind, basically, even further in other areas in the New Testament.
Powerful, powerful verse. Yes, that's one of the concepts of understanding what you don't understand today. Right? It's all about renewing the mind. Dex, would you say that you had, no longer, but had, stinking thinking about something? And then you knew better, and you did better, and you understood better. And so that was a changing of the mind or a renewing of the mind or making a new decision based on new information because you want to make the
Of
best
course.
and wisest choices for yourself and your family.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's really where it's all about. Is when you hear new information, you can put it in with what you already have and make new decisions as needed when you hear truth. See, Dex, when you hear truth, you only have two options: profess it or suppress it. That's all. And I just want you to be mindful of which you're going to do when you hear the truth. And you don't even
Well,
know,
I have to
you don't
determine
even
if
have
it
to
is the truth
know
first.
that you're hearing the truth. You just have to know that when you hear it, what are you going to do with it? You know what I mean?
That, I'm sorry that there's contradiction there. I mean, how do I know if it's the truth?
That's it. See, your mindset right now is illogically formed because you're not listening to the statement that I'm making. You're making an assumption about the statement. In other words, bicycle is a hard word to spell. Spell it.
It's a hard word to spell, yeah. Okay. So what's the point?
So the answer to my question is what?
I didn't get the question.
Bicycle is a hard word to spell. Spell it.
That was a request. So what's the
Okay.
question?
So it's a request.
Right. Okay. So BICYCLE.
IT. Now, the point of that is the fact that you need to listen more to the words that are coming out of my mouth than the words that are floating around in your head. The reason I say it that way is because a lot of times we hear what we want to hear and we don't hear what the other person is actually saying. So
That's true.
here's what I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I think you said
That's true. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. So what I'm saying to you is when you hear the truth, there's only two things you can do with it. Now, that's the only thing I'm saying. I'm not even saying you know that it's truth. I'm just
That
saying
makes
you
no
heard the
sense.
truth. Mhm.
Right. Okay, got it. So I heard it, but I don't know it.
Right. You may not even know that it's the truth, but when you hear it, you only have two options. You understand what I'm
Right.
saying? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm attempting to get your mindset on trying to spell it rather than on the bicycle part because that part of what I said has nothing to do with what I'm really asking you. And I just wanted
Right.
to shake it up in your mind a little bit by saying the bicycle and the it thing to show you how easy it is for the mind to do its thing. There's this really cool series right now on Discovery. It's called Brain Games. And I love it because the brain, I mean, you ever seen a pencil in a glass of water? We know the pencil isn't bent or broken
Right.
or
Right.
angled like that, but our mind plays a trick on us and goes, what is it looking at? You know, so I just want to point out that the mind does that when it comes to thoughts and
Right.
thinking logically and having a reasoning mind to start off with the truth. Because if you
Right.
don't start
Right.
with the truth,
So
you're lost all the way.
so regarding this whole like suppression or what was it? So you either accept it or
Profess.
suppress it,
You
right?
either profess
Okay. So
or suppress.
right. So in order to accept it, you kind of have to build a bridge to it, right? Because you don't know if it's true yet. So you have to create a bridge inside your model to have it make sense. Would you agree with that?
Okay. No. See, that's the wrong way to approach it. See, that's the way man approaches it. God doesn't approach it that way. So
But
you need to approach it the way that God approaches it. God says, look, you don't know everything you need to know about everything you need to know. I didn't make you that way. All I did was give you enough knowledge so that you can tap into me and I can give you the rest of the knowledge that you need for your life on this planet. And then the family that you have, the friends, the job, the career, whatever, all of that will be an outward show of an inward change for you, following the lead that I have already put on for you. Now, you don't have to follow God's plan for your life. but your life will be less than. God designed it so that it's the best that it can possibly be with His guidance. Do you understand that? Yes or no?
No, not really. But
Okay.
so
So when your
to get back
dad
to this,
said to you, son, I've got this first 3 years of your life planned out for you, and you'll do as I say, or maybe he didn't say it out loud to you, but he did have the first 3 years of your life planned out, sorta, kinda, even if he kind of did it by the seat of his pants. You understand that, right? It was his way and his way only for the first 3 years of your life, and the times that you went against him, you heard from him. Yes?
that's all right. Yeah.
Okay. So your spiritual dad, Jesus, Father, Spirit, it's the same thing. He's gonna take care of you your whole entire life.
Right.
The mere fact that you're even taking a breath right now is thank you, Jesus.
Right.
All things are made by Him, for Him, and for His good pleasure, right? And you're His good pleasure. So, yes.
The problem with that analogy is that when I was between 1 and 3, I really could not rationally understand any of this, right?
You still can't. Spiritually speaking, you still can't.
Great. So that means that this is completely irrelevant to me. If I can't understand something,
what's not
then
irrelevant to you is the fact that you don't know what you don't know. That's not
Exactly.
irrelevant to you. That is
Well,
very relevant to you.
if I
because
could chime in just for a second
it
here.
becomes relevant when I know it.
You already know it. You just suppress it.
Real quick, right?
If I
Then
could,
I would actually know it.
I think Jimmy and I are going to say the same
let's
thing.
jump in here real quick.
If I could just chime in real quick, right? Are you saying, in contraspect to what Dex said, Roy, are you saying that you have to have the truth in order to suppress it? And he's saying I don't have the truth, so I'm not suppressing it.
Right, but he does have the truth, and he is suppressing it. So he's blinded by the God of this age, little g, and he doesn't even know it.
So, okay,
Right, but I don't know
doesn't
that I
he
have the
genuinely believe that, though?
I mean, I don't know that I have the truth. If I knew it, then I'd know it. And then I would call it truth.
As soon as Dex says, in the beginning God, now he's on the road to truth. And I know God will reveal a lot of stuff to him as soon as he gets on board with that and gets on the same page with the rest of us. You know that, Dex.
That might take some time, but I do appreciate the discussion.
Yeah, no, hey, now that I know what I know about you, hey, I'm all good. You know, I've been good. So I appreciate your interaction. Thank you.
No, this has actually been awesome. I didn't know what to expect, but really, really happy to meet y'all. And to meet Jimmy again.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Dex, it's a pleasure. Always a pleasure to discuss these things.
Yeah. Small world.
Hope to have a conversation with you, maybe in more detail on these things again soon.
Yeah, my position is I think that I think Dex is honest. You know, when he says when he's saying I don't believe that God exists, I believe he's honest in that. But at the same time, no offense, Dex, I think he's deceived. And I think the same thing might be said in retrospect to me from Dex's position, which is really interesting.
Well, I mean, if I'm deceived, then that's just the case, right? And so the question is, how do you undeceive? Right?
Right. Well, the more important
That
question
is the question.
how would you even know that you're deceived?
Yes.
How would you know that you're deceived?
You don't.
You
But when
don't,
somebody
exactly.
tells you- but when somebody tells you, now you do. Because you need an outside source to tell you. You can't tell yourself you're deceived. You don't know that. But when somebody else outside of you tells you you're deceived because they're hearing the words that are coming out of your mouth and they're very deceptive to yourself. Listen, the way you see yourself is the way you treat yourself. Dex, you're not treating yourself correctly with not having the truth. In the beginning, God. If you don't start there, there's a lot of areas in your life you're going to be deceived in. And that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you got to make a change. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm saying, hey, you know, this God that I serve led me to you this way and was able to talk, you know, to me, through me. I'm not saying everything I said was from the Lord. There might be some fleshly stuff I said in there. You have to discern that. You can discern that. You know what I'm saying. But I
Yeah.
assure you, it's from the heart. You know, I'm not here to maliciously bash on anybody for believing
course.
wrongly. I just want to just point it out.
Nor do I think that's his position either. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'd like to play this clip. You know, before I finish
You want
the
to go through
hangout.
the
Then, of course, we can continue talking about various other stuff. But I wanna, I wanna address some of the arguments that this is basically the debate. I don't know, Brother Roy Montero, whether you heard this debate between Sight and Brugengate, our brother in Christ, and this guy Matt Dillahunty.
I have not, Johnny. I'd be more than honored. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I've reposted that. I've mirrored that on my channel. You can watch that later on. I mean,
Okay.
he used this argument.
Yeah, it looks like 2 hours. Yeah, it was about an hour and 55 minutes. Nice.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna just address some of, because he had the last rebuttal round. So I wanna address a few of his arguments that he made over here. Let's hear together what Matt Dillahunty is saying in his reply.
This problem is also tangled up with some other problems in philosophy, like the apparent inability to achieve absolute certainty.
Can you guys hear this?
I can.
Yes, Bertrand
Okay,
Russell
then.
heard of that. Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
And the inability to justify reason. As such, many philosophers simply acknowledge that they cannot be absolutely certain about anything, including the claim that they cannot be absolutely certain, and that we must begin with some presuppositions to be consistent, uniformly true, namely that existence exists, whether or not it's the ultimate existence, that reason is reliable, and that our experience of reality is generally reliable to the extent that...
Yeah, let me stop that right there. Well, then anybody can do that, including the mentally sick, and nobody can judge each other. So why does then Matt Dillahunty act like a big fat, and I'll say it right here, scumbag, and judge?
Okay, well, hold on. When you're
and
done,
not
when
allow
you're done saying
other
this,
people-
Johnny, I'll explain why. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, brother, please let me finish, because this is the real what I
Very
think.
important.
At best, Matt Dillahunty should then, given that what he has just mentioned, he should always stay silent and never make a judgment. But best he can say, it is my opinion that you should. I prefer that you would do it this way. But he doesn't talk that way. He talks like a Christian has the authority to talk.
Again, he steals from the Christian
I judge you.
worldview in order to support
You're
his
wrong.
worldview, which crumbles, and it's self-refuting, Johnny. Yes?
So we should
Well,
never.
yes.
My point
Yes
is over
and
here
no.
of these hangouts is really, do not let an atheist call you a liar as a Christian.
Amen.
Put him in his place immediately.
Amen.
Calls him a liar. That's the
Okay,
point.
I can add to this though. What Matt Dillahunty is referencing, and Jimmy and I we did a whole podcast on this actually, is this confusion that when presuppositionalists are arguing, we're on the same grounding as a foundationalist. We're not at all. We're not arguing from a foundationalist perspective or an axiomatic theory of knowledge.
No, of course not.
A little while ago. Well, hold on, just a second. I'm almost done here. A little while ago, Dex and I were discussing this primacy of existence issue, right? And we were saying, well, it does seem to the case that in some sense you have to exist or whatnot. But the problem is that even if you were to argue as a foundationalist that you start like Dan Courtney does with the law of identity, the problem with that is that it has the interesting consequence of allowing anybody to start with their own axioms wherever they will or wherever they may.
Exactly.
Let me go ahead and read this though. This I'm not trying to commit a fallacy called a continuum fallacy or a heap fallacy here. What I'm pointing out here is that presuppositionalists like myself and Jimmy and Cy, we're not appealing to an impersonal mathematical equation. That's not the case. What we're pointing out when we say this sort of thing is exactly it's exactly what the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy says. Let me just read this real quick, and maybe this will help a little bit to further conversations, which I'd really appreciate, Dex, if you had me on.
Yeah,
on
because
Google
I just want to finish playing this clip, Brother Russ, if you can make that
Sure.
statement. And then we can
Yeah, let me just read this, and you'll see what I'm saying. Suppose that Ayn Rand's objectivism is true and that existence requires existence, or that sort of axiom is the case. Suppose that's the case. Now listen to what is going on in the philosophical realm or field, if you will. I'm going to read this, like I said, right out of the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. So let me just read it. It says, in general, many foundationalists want to resist this move. That is the move from pragmatic justification to epistemic justification. That's where it's leaving off. In general, many foundationalists want to resist this move. First, relative to the large number of beliefs we have, there are few epistemically certain beliefs. Second, even if one locates a few epistemically certain beliefs, it is very difficult to reconstruct our common sense view of the world from those beliefs. If the ultimate premises of one's view include only beliefs about the current character of one's sense perceptions, it's near impossible to figure out how to justify beliefs about the external world or the past. Another foundationalist response to the arbitrariness, that's what we're appealing to here, this is called the arbitrariness objection, to the arbitrariness argument is to note that it is merely required that a properly basic belief possess some feature in virtue of which the belief is likely to be true. It is not required that a subject believe her belief possess that feature. This response has the virtue of allowing for modest forms of foundationalism in which the basic beliefs are less than certain. Critics of foundationalism continue to insist that unless the subject is aware that the belief possesses this feature, her belief is an improper stopping point in the regress of reasons. For a defense of the arbitrariness objection against foundationalism, see Klein, 1999 and 2004. And for responses to Klein, see Bergman, 2004, Howard Snyder, Kaufman, Howard Snyder, 2005, and Humer, 2003. The point is that this has the interesting consequence of allowing, from a foundationalist perspective, anybody the epistemic right to start wherever they want, and that's what we're pointing out. There are examples in philosophy of this sort of a thing. For example, Leibniz, Spinoza, and some others arrive at different indubitable truths, which is what foundationalism is. We all have to start with certain indubitable, self-evident propositions in order for the reasoning process to begin. We do have a history of this sort of a thing going on in philosophy. For I was trying to explain the example. Leibniz and many others always contradict each other with these axiomatic theories, or foundationalism, foundherentism, things of this sort. By an example, well, three examples would be Descartes, Spinoza, and Leibniz, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. Namely, that these foundationalists end up contradicting each other, with one arriving at a monist system, another as a dualist, and yet another as an atomist pluralist with respect to metaphysics. And this is a huge problem. This is exactly what the arbitrariness objection is.
Okay, were you done, brother?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, let me continue to play this, and then we wrap this up.
We can even tell when it's not in the case of optical illusions, hallucinations, etc. We also tend to agree via Occam's razor that we should minimize the depth of our presuppositions to a level as close to zero as possible. In other words, if we agree that we must first presuppose the laws of logic, then we shouldn't expand this potential problem by presupposing something beyond the laws of.
See, that's the huge problem over there, because what is the minimum? See, he thinks that Occam's razor, see, he's making a knowledge claim by saying it is going beyond necessity to posit the Christian deity when we say
Exactly.
that is within the necessity itself. This is a very, very important point, and that was unfortunately that wasn't brought up in that debate. So
He claims atheism, Johnny, but he speaks Christianese. Why is that?
yeah, that's exactly what people must look at. This is what I
They
urge.
have to, exactly. Their worldview can't be consistent because they have to, and some people say borrow from the Christian worldview, but I say they're stealing from the Christian worldview.
Yeah,
What do you think?
absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with you totally. And this is why, of course, we should never allow them to get away with judgment kind of language or with absolutist language, would even mean, even if we say, this is that way, no way, you're wrong. All this kind of language immediately, sorry, sir, I'm not going to allow you to talk with me in this way. You can't tell me, no way.
May I comment? May I comment on this for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, sure, and then we got to wrap it up also, so, yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, the basic idea here is that we all have our own worldview. And obviously this worldview is subjective, right? But the key presupposition here is that we all share the same reality. That's it. So the worldview is always being tested against the reality.
Yeah,
Right.
but
So
I would agree with that.
so we can objectively measure which worldview is better than the other. For example, by making predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So all these worldviews are subjective. All these worldviews,
predictions
they
itself-
have to be. They have to be, right?
So that the predictions itself, we have to know whether the prediction actually came true. And for that, we again have to rely on our worldview.
Well, I
We
think,
do,
I think
of course.
this would be the
But-
segue where us as presuppositionists like Jimmy and myself would go into the issue of induction and how you can even validate that. But that's a whole other discussion. We could probably spend that
Exactly.
as much time as we've already done.
I just want to end it at that because that was the crucial point that I wanted to mention here.
That would be a whole other discussion. But yes, thanks,
Exactly.
Johnny.
So
Maybe
that's
we could-
that. Now of course after that you can continue to talk about in the hangout. But I just say this in the very end, guys. All my Christian brothers and sisters, specific, do not allow anybody, okay, especially an atheist, okay, to tell you this is right, this is wrong, you are a liar, you're this, you're that. I know this. I know you have done that. Don't let them tell you. No, sorry. You can't make any of that statements to me unless you start with God. And with that said, guys, take care.
Amen.
And God
God
bless you.
bless you.
Yeah, Johnny, you're right.